Chapter 396. As the saying goes, be lenient and take a detour. When Tang Dong looked at Tan Xiu, he found that Tan Xiu was nodding to him, so he said, "No problem. But I hope you won't talk too much about tonight's matter." Fatty G nodded repeatedly and said with an obsequious smile, "Don't worry. I won't say half a word outside. Even if someone asks me, I won't know anything about it." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said with a smile, "All right, sit down and talk. I heard you're in the ore business. Can you talk to me about the types of ores you deal in?" "Most of the ore business I run is mining mines and selling some stones. Of course, I also have an ore carving factory there," said Fatty G. "I don't think there are any other types, right?" Tan Xiu asked, "Haven't you found any precious ores in the mines? For example, the ores that are selling at a high price in the market now?" Fatty G was a bit hesitant. Seeing that Tan Xiu and Fatty G were talking about ores, Gu Xiaoxue and Tang Dong left the box to arrange the affairs of the wine garden. Tan Xiu seemed to have seen through his mind and calmly said, "Just tell me what you want. I won't hide it from you. I do need a lot of precious ores. As long as I like them, the price is negotiable. I'm not a person who bullies others just because I have power and influence. I prefer to do business slowly and steadily." Fatty G was a bit relieved and said, "One of the businesses I run is indeed related to precious ores. Some of them are obtained when we mine the mountain, and some are purchased through various channels." "That's right, I have several precious ores in my house now. I bought them through a certain channel a few days ago. If Boss Tang wants them, I can give them all to you. Can I trouble you to send someone to deliver them?" Tan Xiu said. "After all, I haven't seen the types of ores you mentioned. If I really like them, you can rest assured about the price. I won't take them for free." Fatty G's expression moved. He immediately took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. After giving some instructions, he then hung up the phone. "I've given the order. It will definitely be delivered within an hour." Tan Xiu laughed and said, "If you can find a lot of precious ores, you don't need to sell them to others in the future. Sell them all to me. I won't let you suffer a loss in terms of price, and I will also strictly control the quality. We'll be working partners from now on." "Partners?" Fatty G's eyes lit up and he immediately said with a happy face, "Good, good, good. We'll be partners in the future. If I get any precious ores, I'll let you choose first." In the private room, Gao Yanfeng's body had been disposed of, and the bloodstains on the ground had been wiped clean. If not for the faint smell of blood floating in the air, no one would have thought that Gao Yanfeng, who was very powerful in Jingmen Island, would die here. Outside the box, Gao Yanfeng's men were also dealt with by the Everlasting Feast Hall's people. "Grand Master, everything has been arranged." After Gu Xiaoxue and Tang Dong returned to the private room, Gu Xiaoxue said. Tan Xiu said with a smile, "I'm at ease with your work. Uncle Dong, please have a seat." A bright smile hung on Tang Dong's face. The matter that had been pressing on his heart recently could finally be solved satisfactorily, making him feel very happy. He was also deeply satisfied with his nephew. Previously, he didn't understand how Tan Xiu was more powerful than Tang Yunpeng at such a young age. It had only been a few days since he arrived in Guangyang, yet he had already dealt a heavy blow to the Yao and Sun families. But now, he finally understood that with the Everlasting Feast Hall as their backing, they might not necessarily lose even if they wanted to wrestle with the Yao family in the imperial capital. He began to think that he would go back and tell today's matter to his old man, and then let the three elders of his family discuss whether or not to move against the Yao family now. After all, with the Everlasting Feast Hall joining them, the Tang family would be like a tiger that had grown wings, and it wouldn't be difficult for them to destroy the Yao family. "Uncle Dong, I hope you won't tell anyone about tonight's matter after you go back. My identity as the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss must be kept a secret," said Tan Xiu. "Why?" Tang Dong stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression. "I still have important things to do." Tang Xiu calmly said, if you spread the news that I'm the Everlasting Feast Hall's owner, it's very likely that our rival families will learn about it. They will definitely target the Everlasting Feast Hall when the time comes, and it will bring us endless troubles in the future. I need time to solve some things. If I can wait for a few years, let alone the Yao family, I'm confident that I can get rid of 8 or 10 Yao families. Tang Dong was startled inwardly. He now understood why Tan Xiu had never told anyone about his identity as the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. It turned out that this was the reason he was worried about. Moreover, from his words, Tang Dong could hear the seriousness in his words. He could tell that he definitely had a big plan. Tan Xiu, I originally planned to tell your second grandpa after I go back. But since you've warned me, I won't say it anymore. As long as Fatty G doesn't say anything about today's matter, I guarantee that it won't spread outside, said Tang Dong with a serious expression. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and looked at Gu Xiaoxue, saying, Xiaoxue, if the Seaside Strait Manor's hunting team goes to the Evil Dragon Sea area to hunt fierce beasts, you can also send some experts of our Everlasting Feast Hall to follow them. Firstly, it can temper the members, and secondly, we can get some fees from the Seaside Strait Manor. I believe in Uncle Dong's generous character. It won't be a problem to give each member 100,000 or 200,000 yuan. I'll arrange it, Grand Master. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. Tang Dong's eyes lit up as he asked with concern, how powerful are the experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall, Tan Xiu? Are they more powerful than the members of the Seaside Strait Manor's hunting team? Gu Xiaoxue replied to Tang Dong, I once met the members of your Seaside Strait Manor's hunting team and happened to see them hunting low-level fierce beasts. The people our Everlasting Feast Hall sent out, let alone the lowest level of fierce beasts, even if it's a higher level, they can still get rid of it. Are they really that powerful? Tang Dong was pleasantly surprised. All right. It's decided then. I'll give each member of the Everlasting Feast Hall to follow our hunting team to the Evil Dragon Sea area. I'll also reward them if they perform well in the sea. Uncle Dong, I still have something to do, so I can't accompany you here. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile. Tell Xiaoxue to call me when the oars arrive. All right. Go do your thing. Tang Dong stood up and said with a smile. Today, he could be considered to be very happy, happier than many times in the past. The stronger Tan Xiu's ability was and the more cards he exposed, the happier he was. Although the current Tang family was still famous in the country, it was in the midst of a surging undercurrent in the dark. It was unknown how many enemies were lurking in all directions, and how many pairs of eyes were secretly staring at them. It must be noted that the Tang family was extremely united in these turbulent days due to the small number of people in the family. Each and every one of them had the concept of, one prosper, one perish, all perish. Therefore, if Tan Xiu's final performance could bring the Tang family back to its former glory, he was willing to go all out to push Tan Xiu to the patriarch's throne. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu returned to the exquisite pagoda and saw Gu Yan, sitting cross-legged in cultivation on the 7th floor. He also sat cross-legged on the floor and began to cultivate. Master. A few seconds later, Gu Yan, floated up from the ice bed and landed in front of Tan Xiu. She even imitated Tan Xiu and sat cross-legged there. Why aren't you cultivating? Asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Gu Yan, shook her head and smilingly said, I don't want to waste time, Yan, Every second that I could spend with my master with my eyes open was a second that I had earned. That's right, what happened outside? Is it all settled? Tan Xiu smiled and said, just a small matter, it's all settled. Immediately, Tan Xiu recounted his identity as a member of the Tang family as well as what happened between Tang Dong and Gao Yanfeng in full detail. In the end, he smiled and said, You've been here for decades, you should understand the situation of this country. Although there are laws, they can only bind ordinary people. Moreover, as long as it's done cleanly and without leaving any evidence, even if someone wants to cause trouble, they can't find an excuse. Gu Yan, smiled and said, Master, if you're willing to become this country's, no, it should be the person with the most power on earth, I can help you achieve it. Don't the people of China always say, follow me and prosper, oppose me and perish? Tan Xiu smiled and said, I know you're powerful. You can even destroy the entire earth, what else can't you do? However, Master wants to rely on his own ability to do what he wants to do. Even if he becomes the most powerful person in the world, what can he do? It's better to have a group of loyal and powerful subordinates around him. Don't forget, our goal is to return to the immortal world and take revenge. NN. Gu Yan smiled and said, I'll do whatever Master says. Yan will listen to everything Master says. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, you little girl. Gu Yan quickly pulled Tan Xiu's wrist and said with dissatisfaction, Master, I'm not a silly little girl anymore. I've grown up. Although my age is still very young in your eyes, I'm an old monster who has lived for thousands of years in the eyes of many others. So, don't call me a little girl anymore. Tan Xiu said with a smile, okay. Our Yan is a big girl, not a little girl anymore. That's right. Gu Yan raised her small face and smiled happily. Let's not talk about this anymore. I want to ask you something. Tan Xiu said with a smile. What do you want to ask, Master? Gu Yan propped her chin and said. As long as Yan knows something, I'll tell you. What I want to know is, why did you only accept Xiaoxue as your disciple, but not light and dark? Tan Xiu asked. I've secretly observed the aptitudes of those two little guys, and they're indeed extraordinary. Even their cultivation is probably not worse than Xiaoxue, right? Chapter 397. The smile on Gu Yan's face vanished and was replaced by a solemn expression. She said, Master, you know that I once studied under the celestial mystery heavenly emperor. However, I concealed my identity at that time. Since you gave me a divine pearl to deceive the heaven's secrets, even the celestial mystery heavenly emperor couldn't pry into my true identity from the heaven's secrets. Similarly, I also used the method of peeping into the heaven's secrets to observe the two of them, but I found that I couldn't see through their past and could not see their future trajectory. In the heaven's secrets, they were just two phantoms shrouded in a faint black mist. Tan Xiu slightly frowned. He was not good at divination and peeping into the heaven's secrets. Although he occasionally had some insights and could perceive some things from the heaven's secrets, it was only a very small amount of illusory things. Yan, what does this mean? According to the experience I learned from the celestial mystery heavenly emperor, there are only two situations for them, said Gu Yan, seriously. The first is that someone used a special method to hide their true identity, just like me who was once defeated by the celestial mystery heavenly emperor. The second is that both of them lack a soul. Humans have 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls. Even if only 1 spiritual and 1 physical soul is missing, the destiny of such people will dissipate in the heaven's secrets. Tang Xiu was surprised and asked, how can a person without a soul live well? And they can even cultivate immortal techniques? Yes, they can, said Gu Yan, solemnly. The 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls have their own effects, but I don't know which one is missing. I secretly observed them for a long time and found that they don't look like people without a soul. That's right, there's only one thing unusual about them. What is it? Asked Tan Xiu. Blood. Their desire for blood is very strong. It's as if they were born to kill. They have a very gifted combat consciousness and extremely cruel killing methods, said Gu Yan. In this regard, they are a bit like the Azura clan. How are their cultivation levels now? Asked Tan Xiu. Gu Yan said, he is indeed stronger than Xiaoxue. He will soon enter the immortal infant stage. Tan Xiu was silent for a long while before he slowly said, they seem to still be working outside. Gu Yan said, yes, Xiaoxue told me that they are all training abroad. He now had the treatment of a state guest from more than a dozen countries, and was even a noble personally conferred by the Queen of England. Aside from the few of us, no one knows that he's from the everlasting feast hall. Dark has always been hiding in the dark. She's the #1 assassin of the world's largest assassin organization. Xiao Shui summoned them back because I was about to wake up. Tan Xiu said, once the two of them break through to the immortal infant stage, their strength will be very terrifying. Perhaps, apart from Ji Qimei, no one else could be their opponent. How about this, you tell them to make the best use of their time to deal with the foreign affairs while they stay on the first floor of the Linglong Treasure Pagoda to cultivate. Give me a few years and I'm confident that I'll surpass them. When that time comes, I'll let them follow me to handle the affairs. No problem. I'll arrange it later, Gu Yenner nodded and said with a smile. How did you find them? Asked Tan Xiu. Mount Everest. Gu Yenner said, some people took these two children to climb the steepest snow wall of Mount Everest. Someone brought the two children to climb the steepest snow wall of Mount Everest. The 6 of them were all martial artists with great strength. Each of them had surpassed the Grandmaster level and had already touched the realm of Tao. These 2 children are the children of 2 of them. And then? Asked Tan Xiu. Gu Yenner said with a smile, I showed some of my strength to intimidate them and then taught them a very low-level cultivation technique. After that, he taught them a very low-level cultivation technique and told the couple that he wanted to take these 2 children as his disciples. He also promised that when the 2 children grew up, he would let them go home to acknowledge their parents. They agreed. Tan Xiu was surprised. Yes, they agreed. Gu Yenner nodded. They also said some high-sounding principles, saying that it's a great fortune for their children to encounter an immortal fate at an early age. They even said a lot of words of gratitude. But in my opinion, they cared more about that cultivation technique. Tan Xiu nodded and forced a smile. Cultivating an immortal cultivation technique and embarking on the immortal path. This was probably something that countless people dreamed of. I reckon that most people in this world will abandon their families, businesses, wives, and children in the face of such a choice. You can't blame them. Later, when they were adults, did you tell them about their parents? I told them, but they said they had no feelings for their parents and didn't want to go back. Gu Yenner nodded. Let's wait and see. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. I'll persuade them when my strength improves in the future. After all, people's hearts are made of flesh and blood. Even if they are bloodthirsty, I'm afraid they will still have some fantasies about their parents. I'll help them deal with the demons in their hearts later. You really cherish talents more than before, Master, said Gu Xiaoxue with a smile. Cherishing talents is the right thing to do. Tan Xiu laughed. If I have many powerhouses under my command in the future, I'll be able to fight my way to the immortal world again and set foot on the supreme throne of the immortal world. Not only will I kill my enemies with my own hands, but I'll also break the shackles of the immortal world and go to the God realm. Gu Xiaoxue said, Master, do you think I should accept them as my disciples? Gu Xiaoxue said, I don't believe that these 2 one-year-old children are the hidden pawns of the enemy. That's what I wanted to tell you. Tan Xiu said. Accept them. Since they already have such a cultivation base, they also have extremely high aptitudes. If you take them as disciples, it will make them feel closer to you. Then let's go. Gu Yenner said with a smile. I'll accept them as my disciples now. Tan Xiu pulled her and shook his head. Don't be in such a hurry. I'll go outside later. Fatty Ji sent some people to deliver some precious ores. I'll buy them if I can use them. You can accept them as your disciples when I leave the exquisite pagoda. All right. Gu Yenner said with a smile. Nearly an hour later, Gu Xiaoxue came to the exquisite pagoda and informed Tan Xiu that the ores had been delivered. After Tan Xiu left, he ordered Gu Xiaoxue to bring light and dark into the exquisite pagoda. Inside the private room of the restaurant, Fatty Ji stroked the suitcase in his hand with a smile on his face. He never thought that he would accidentally bump into Tan Xiu after helping Gao Yanfeng to swindle Tang Dong. His relationship with the everlasting feast hall would go a step further. He didn't even dare to think about it in the past. Others might not know how terrifying the everlasting feast hall was, but he knew it. He had once seen the woman of the everlasting feast hall, Gu Yen, who was clad in a white dress, treading on the void and dancing on the sea surface from afar. At that time, he almost thought that he had met a fairy. But what a pity! At that time, he didn't have the time to find a boat and rush over as Gu Yenner's fairy-like figure disappeared before his eyes. Later on, he paid close attention to the movements of many members of the everlasting feast hall and finally found something that made him secretly frightened. He didn't even dare to send people to investigate it again. Those seemingly ordinary security guards of the everlasting feast hall were, in fact, often traveling to various countries abroad. As for those security guards, they were simply terrorists. They had many identities and had participated in many killings and wars. 7 or 8 years ago, 2 security guards of the everlasting feast hall came to his door and put a sharp dagger on his neck, warning him not to investigate the everlasting feast hall anymore. Ever since that time, he no longer dared to investigate anything related to the everlasting feast hall. Whenever he had the opportunity, he would come to the everlasting feast hall to entertain his friends and repeatedly express his goodwill. Sitting in the box, Fatty G stroked the suitcase with a bit of shrewdness in his eyes. He thought inwardly, accompanying the king is like accompanying a tiger. Tan Xiu is not only a member of the Tang family, but also the owner of the everlasting feast hall. At the same time, he's also a ruthless and merciless person. Therefore, I must not ask for an exorbitant price. I must make him satisfied and take care of me in the future. Hey, Fatty G, have you delivered the things? Tan Xiu's figure appeared at the box's door. Boss Tang, they've been delivered, said Fatty G with a smile. I'll open it for you to have a look. If you're satisfied, I'll sell them to you at a 50% discount. After all, this is our first cooperation. I won't give you any discounts in the future. Thank you, said Tan Xiu with a smile. The black suitcase was opened, revealing 6 oars of different colors and sizes inside. One of the oars faintly emitted spiritual chi fluctuations. A spirit crystal. Tang Xiu's expression turned a bit strange. He reached out to grab the oar and observed it for a few times before he confirmed it. Spirit crystals were beneficial to cultivators and immortal cultivators, but they were of little value to him. Moreover, although this spirit crystal was not small and was about 10 times bigger than the spirit crystals in the immortal world, its quality was very poor and belonged to the lowest grade of spirit crystals. Boss Tang, did you take a fancy to this ore? Asked Fatty G with a strange expression. This ore was found by his workers when they were mining. There were a lot of them there, so he ordered his men to collect them. However, he had just obtained it recently and had yet to find an expert to evaluate it as to what kind of ore it belonged to. Tan Xiu nodded and said, this ore is good. It's very comfortable to the touch, and its weight is several times lighter than other kinds of ores. Give me a price, I want this ore. Fatty G was a bit embarrassed. He didn't know what kind of ore this was, so how could he quote a price? Just name your price. I told you that I won't let you suffer a loss, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Fatty G gritted his teeth and said, Boss Tang, I'll give this ore to you since you like it. As for selling it to you later, I'll charge you 100,000 for such a big ore. What do you think, 100,000? This Fatty G actually sold a piece of spirit crystal for 100,000? He really doesn't know what's good for him. Chapter 398. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he shook his head. He saw the slight change in Fatty G's expression and realized that Fatty G had misunderstood him. He then said with a smile, Don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying that you're a good person and your price is very fair. No matter how many of these ores you have in the future, I'm willing to buy them all. The price for each one is 100,000 yuan. Really? Fatty G was happy upon hearing it and quickly asked. It's true, said Tan Xiu. I don't know what these ores are, but I'm very interested in collecting all kinds of strange ores. Besides, I'm not short of money. Let alone 100,000 yuan, even 1 billion yuan is just my pocket money. So I'll buy as many as you have in the future. Fatty G was shocked by Tan Xiu's words. 1 billion yuan was just pocket money. There were only a few people in the world who dared to say such a thing. However, this time, he also saw a golden path. It must be noted that he had recently mined the mine and found hundreds of such ores. If he sold all of them to Tan Xiu, it would be worth it. I'm rich. I'm rich. Fatty G excitedly said, Boss Tang, take a look at the other 5 ores. Do you like any of them? Tan Xiu glanced at them and found that 4 of them could be used to refine tools. They could also be added to medicinal herbs and fierce beasts' bones to refine medicines. Hence, he picked up the 4 ores and said, I want these 4. Just give me the total price. Fatty G was overjoyed. After quickly calculating in his heart, he said, I bought these 4 ores through special channels for a total price of 35 million yuan. If you want them, I'll sell them to you for 5 million yuan. A difference of 150,000 yuan. Not much. Deal. Tan Xiu nodded and said, give me your bank account. I'll transfer the money to you now. Fatty G's joy grew. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu would be so happy. After giving his account to Tan Xiu, he quickly received 6 million yuan. Boss Tang, why did you give me 100,000 yuan more? Tan Xiu smiled and said, I said I won't take advantage of you, so I absolutely won't. That ore is worth 100,000. I'll add it all up for you. Fatty G felt a little impressed by Tan Xiu's actions. He gritted his teeth and quickly said, Boss Tang, I still have hundreds of such ores. When do you want them? Tan Xiu was surprised. There are still so many. Yes. This was just recently mined from my mine. In a few more days, I believe we will be able to find more. After weighing the pros and cons, Fatty G decided to speak it out. He wanted to see if what Tang Xiu said was true, and whether it was true or not. Did he sincerely want to cooperate with him? Tan Xiu smiled and said, go get it. After you bring all of them here, you can directly hand them over to Gu Xiaoxue. She will personally count them and pay the bill for you. However, before I buy your ores, we need to sign an agreement. Otherwise, I will not buy any more precious ores from you. What agreement? Asked Fatty G quickly. Tan Xiu smiled and said, the ores you sold to me can only be sold to me in the future. I don't want the strange ores I own to be found everywhere in the world. The rarer something is, the more precious it is. You should understand that, right? I understand. Fatty G couldn't have asked for more from Tan Xiu's condition. Grand Master, this ore is very strange. Gu Xiaoxue, who had been standing at the side and watching, spoke after Fatty G left. Tan Xiu casually threw it to her and said with a smile, you're lucky. This is called a spirit crystal. It contains spiritual power. After a cultivator absorbs the spiritual power inside, they can speed up their cultivation. Send someone to find Fatty G's mine and closely monitor the movements there. Remember, if he and his workers sell the spirit crystals to us, then let him continue working for us and we'll pay him. If he dares to have any crooked ideas, kill him directly even if he loses a single spirit crystal. Then we'll control the mine. Yes. Gu Xiaoxue's face showed a look of surprise. She naturally knew what a spirit crystal was. She had heard about it countless times from her master, Gu Yan, and Ji Qimei. In the immortal world, it was rumored that there were spirit crystals and immortal crystals. Each kind of spirit crystal and immortal crystal were divided into many grades. She played with the spirit crystal in her hand and asked curiously, Grand Master, what grade is this spirit crystal? Tan Xiu smiled and said, the lowest grade. Gu Xiaoxue suddenly showed a disappointed look when she heard this. Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Don't be disappointed. Even the lowest grade spirit crystal is good for people like you who haven't even cultivated the immortal nascent. Besides, it's better to have these spirit crystals than nothing, right? I estimate that you only need 100 spirit crystals at most. After absorbing the spiritual power inside, you can easily reach the critical point of the golden core stage. It's not impossible for you to step into the immortal nascent stage." "Really?" Gu Xiaoxue asked in surprise. "Do I look like I'm just teasing you?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Alright, you go and busy yourself. Remember to send someone to monitor Fatty G and his mining area." "No problem." Gu Yan quickly returned the spirit crystal to Tan Xiu and ran outside with a happy face. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu returned to the exquisite pagoda. Just as he entered the first floor, Light and Dark, who were standing inside, knelt in front of Tan Xiu with unconcealable joy and called out, "Greetings, Grand Master." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "Get up. Since Yan decided to accept you as her disciples, it means that she's satisfied with you. However, don't be arrogant and conceited. You must cultivate well in the future and don't let us down. Understood?" Light and Dark replied in unison. Tan Xiu waved his hand, motioning the two to leave. His eyes then fell on Ji Qimei and said, "I've decided that the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall are all good. You can pass on the cultivation technique to them. Only teach them cultivation techniques below the golden core stage. After their cultivation reaches the golden core stage, we'll consider teaching them the later cultivation techniques." Ji Qimei hesitated and said, "Venerable Lord, Master has also considered this issue, but she eventually gave up. In fact, teaching cultivation techniques is not difficult, but the main problem is the lack of cultivation resources. If the number of people is small, I can get some precious herbs through various channels to refine a batch of medicinal pills. But if the number is too many, I'm afraid I won't be able to handle it." "Actually, I can teach you a way," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "What is it?" asked Ji Qimei. "It's a reward system," Tan Xiu said. "You can draw up a detailed reward form, such as who gets precious herbs from the outside and how many of them. Then, you can reward them with medicinal pills according to the standard. If you set the standard higher, I believe that not only will everyone have motivation and goals, but they will also get cultivation resources. As for alchemy, I'll also refine a batch of medicinal pills if I have time in the future, but you'll need to give me the herbs." A happy expression appeared on Ji Qimei's face as she excitedly said, "I'll follow Venerable Lord's instruction. I'll do as you say." "Let me tell you another good news," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I just learned that spirit crystals also exist on Earth. I've handed this matter over to Xiaoxue, and she'll tell you the details." "Spirit crystals?" Ji Qimei was overjoyed and said, "Boss, not only will my injuries heal faster if I have spirit crystals, but I can also use them to arrange the 9 heavens cold ice array. Once the 9 heavens cold ice array is arranged, it can suppress the injuries caused by the time nightmare in Master's body, so that Master can hold on for a longer time." Tan Xiu's eyes lit up as he nodded and said, "You're right. Wait for the batches of spirit crystals to arrive, then collect them first. When you have accumulated enough to arrange the 9 heavens cold ice array, you can immediately start arranging the array. Afterward, you can use them as resources to cultivate talents." "Understood." Ji Qimei cupped her fists and replied. As Tan Xiu came to the 7th floor, he saw Gu Yan looking at him with a smile. Tan Xiu immediately shook his head and said with a smile, "What are you thinking about? Why are you smiling so happily?" "You're the best to me, Master," said Gu Yan. I just heard your conversation with Elder Ji, but I didn't expect that spirit crystals also exist on Earth." Tan Xiu walked over and put his hand around her shoulder, letting her lean on his chest. Then, he said in a low voice, "There are many things that exist on Earth. Even I've been shocked many times now. There's also a holy dragon fruit in my interspatial ring. You should know its value. Aside from it, I also found some clues about the demonic revival grass. I originally planned to rush back to Shanghai to track the whereabouts of the demonic revival grass, but I heard the news that you woke up, so I immediately changed my direction and came to see you first. Holy dragon fruit. The demonic revival grass. A shocked expression was also revealed on Gu Yen's beautiful face. One must know that these things were the most precious treasures that countless immortals yearn for even in the immortal world. She didn't expect that these things would appear on Earth. The next 2 days, Tan Xiu stayed in the exquisite pagoda, chatting with Gu Yan and telling her all kinds of stories. In short, his ears were always filled with Gu Yan's cheerful laughter. Master, Yan can't hold on any longer. On the 7th floor of the exquisite pagoda, Gu Yan's face was pale as her lower lip squirmed. Those sounds were very, very soft. Tan Xiu gently hugged her and said with a distressed expression, "Be good, Yan. Don't force yourself if you can't hold on anymore. Master will often come to accompany you, and I'll immediately rush over when you wake up. Also, I'll do everything I can to heal your internal injuries. Believe me, Master. I'm a man of my word." Gu Yan's blurred eyes suddenly brightened, and her spirit seemed to be a lot better. Her soft body suddenly sat up from Tan Xiu's embrace, and her pale lips directly pressed on Tan Xiu's lips. 1 second. 2 seconds. At the 3rd second, Tan Xiu finally woke up from the shock. Just as he was about to push Gu Yan away, Gu Yan's eyes had already closed. 2 clear tears fell from the corners of her eyes, and then she softly fell into Tan Xiu's arms. Chapter 399. After returning to Earth, Tan Xiu's character had undergone a subtle change. His once pure and desireless character was no longer there. Instead, he was more like a human, with flesh and blood. The changes in his 7 emotions and 6 desires affected him all the time. At this moment, Tan Xiu looked at his unconscious disciple in his arms. Even though he had prepared himself, he still felt a deep sorrow inside. Therefore, his hatred toward Shade Demon Zhu Wushou was even more intense. Tan Xiu gently hugged Gu Yan and let her lie on the sickbed. She was still frowning even though she was unconscious, as if she was suffering from pain and torture. Tan Xiu couldn't help but whisper, "Yan, Master will definitely cure you. I'll make Shade Demon Zhu Wushou live for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, millions of years." On the cold 7th floor of the exquisite pagoda, Tan Xiu sat cross-legged beside Gu Yan and quietly watched Gu Yan's beautiful face for a long time. Finally, when the sun rose and set, a new day came. He floated up and resolutely left the 7th floor. When he came to the 1st floor of the exquisite pagoda, he saw Ji Qimei sitting cross-legged on the futon in the center, silently cultivating. The immortal essence fluctuation coming from her body was very strong. "Lord." Ji Qimei sensed that Tan Xiu had come down. A sorrowful look flashed in her eyes as she respectfully got up and greeted. Tan Xiu's expression was very cold as he lightly nodded and said, "Ji Qimei, I'll leave Yan to you. Your most important task is to protect her safety. When she wakes up next time, I'll teach her the top cultivation technique in the immortal world, as well as a kind of combat technique." "Understood." Ji Qimei respectfully replied. After leaving the exquisite pagoda, Tan Xiu didn't have the mood to stay in the everlasting feast hall. He asked someone to drive him to the airport and then took a plane to Shanghai. It was already noon when he arrived at Shanghai. Since the buried diamond was on his mind, Tan Xiu took a taxi to the Glory Auction House. It was a magnificent building with 30 to 40 floors. When Tan Xiu returned, he used his phone to look up information about the Glory Auction House. He discovered that other than the general manager of the Glory Auction House called Ho Ching Min, there was no way to find out who the big boss behind the scenes was. "Hello, sir. You need to show your work pass to enter." If you are not a staff member of our auction house, please enter from the next passage. There is a registration counter over there. Just like the credit card machine in a subway station, all 6 entrances were sealed. On the side, a woman in a blue suit with a work pass on her hand said. Tan Xiu glanced at her and followed her instructions to enter the passage next door. Hello, sir. May I know what brings you to our Glory auction house? 2 female staff members were sitting in front of the registration desk. One of them asked with a professional smile. Tan Xiu said, I want to see Ho Ching Min. What? The 2 female staff members stared blankly as a strange look appeared in their eyes. Tan Xiu repeated, I want to see Ho Ching Min. I'll have to trouble you to help me inform him. One of the staff members forced a smile and said, Hello, sir. If you want to see our general manager, you need to make an appointment in advance. Also, you only need to register with us and then go inside to find the lobby manager. As for whether he can help you or not, we don't know. Registration. Tan Xiu took the registration book, wrote his name and contact information on it, and then strode into the lobby on the first floor. Inside the lobby, there was a row of tables and chairs, where a middle-aged man and a woman were sitting. Excuse me, who is the lobby manager? Tan Xiu glanced at them and asked aloud. The middle-aged woman stood up, nodded and said with a smile, I am. May I ask who you are? My surname is Tan Xiu, said Tan Xiu. I came to your Glory auction house this time to see your general manager, Ho Ching Min. If it's convenient, I'll have to trouble you to inform him. The lobby manager forced a smile and said, Mr. Tang, our general manager can't see any guests for the time being. Can you leave your contact information and identification? I'll submit your information after our general manager is done with his work. So troublesome. Tan Xiu frowned and said. This is the rule of our Glory auction house, Mr. Tang, said the lobby manager. Rules? For a moment, Tan Xiu was silent. Then, he dialed Qi Nan's cell number and said, help me find the contact information of Glory auction house's general manager, Ho Ching Min. The sooner the better. I have it, boss. Qi Nan's voice came out of the phone. A trace of surprise was revealed on Tan Xiu's face as he asked, do you know Ho Ching Min? We have a bit of friendship. Qi Nan said with a smile, he once tried to break the 1000 revolution array of our Everlasting Feast Hall's Jingmen Island headquarters. Unfortunately, he failed. Later on, he came to our Everlasting Feast Hall's branch in Shanghai many times, so I know him and also have his personal contact information. That's great. Come to the Glory auction house now. I'll be waiting for you here, said Tan Xiu. Understood. Qi Nan replied and hurriedly hung up the phone. Behind the long table, the lobby manager looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression. Although she didn't know who Tan Xiu called, but from the content of their conversation, she knew that he should be able to contact the general manager, Ho Ching Min. Mr. Tang, may I ask what your occupation is? The lobby manager pondered for a moment and then asked in a soft voice. I'm a student, said Tan Xiu. A student? The lobby manager secretly forced a smile inwardly. Tan Xiu pointed to the chair at the side and lightly asked, can I sit here and wait for my friend? Please have a seat. The lobby manager nodded and smiled. Tan Xiu sat down and quietly waited. To kill time, he took out a book on economics from his travel bag and silently read it. More than 20 minutes later. Principles of Economics? Not bad, young man. You're reading this kind of book at such a young age. I see that you're reading the English version. Can you understand it? A voice sounded beside Tan Xiu, awakening Tan Xiu who was immersed in the content. Tan Xiu raised his head and looked at the tall and cool-looking middle-aged man. He immediately lowered his head and looked at the content of the book, lightly saying, it's okay. Upon seeing Tan Xiu's expression, the middle-aged man immediately grinned and said, Principles of Economics is a book published by Mechanical Industry Press in 2003. The author is N. Gregory Mankiw. This book is a relatively basic economic teaching material. At present, it's more commonly used by Mankiw, Soros, Fanlian, and the others. As a matter of fact, many of our Chinese businessmen read Western economics, which is suitable for our country's situation. The content is generally similar. Tan Xiu put down the book in his hand again and looked up at the middle-aged man, saying, "Are you showing off your education level? If so, I want to ask you a question." The middle-aged man couldn't help laughing and said, "Young man, don't be angry. Tell me, what question do you want to ask? If it's about economics, I should be able to answer 1 or 2 questions. But if it's about business, I know more about it. Then answer me. Which company will be a dark horse in the domestic business circle in the next few years?" Tan Xiu lightly said. The middle-aged man was somewhat speechless. Although he had been in the business circle for decades and now had huge assets and owned many types of companies, he really couldn't tell which company would be a dark horse in the business circle in the next few years. Tan Xiu quietly waited for more than 10 seconds and found that he couldn't answer. Then, he lightly said, "Since you can't even answer my question, then don't disturb my reading. You don't look like an ordinary person either. Don't you know that it's very impolite to disturb others without even introducing yourself?" The middle-aged man couldn't help laughing and said, "I'm impolite. I'm Yang Zhenpan, a businessman. I have some shares in this glory auction house. May I ask how to address you, little brother?" Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu's expression moved. He stood up and asked, "You have shares in this glory auction house. Can you do me a favor?" Yang Zhenpan slightly furrowed his brows, but soon relaxed again. He carefully observed Tan Xiu a few times and then said, "It's not a problem for me to help you. As long as it's within my ability, I can naturally help you. But before I help you, you have to answer a question of mine." "Say it." Tan Xiu nodded. "I really can't answer the question you just asked me," said Yang Zhenpan with a smile. "It's because I really haven't found any powerful company in recent years, let alone a dark horse coming out of nowhere in the next few years. So, I want to hear your result." "It's the magnificent Tang Corporation," said Tan Xiu calmly. Yang Zhenpan stared blankly and hesitantly said, "The name of this company sounds familiar. I seem to have heard it somewhere, but I can't remember it for a while. Can you tell me about the situation of this magnificent Tang Corporation?" "I don't think you need to ask me. You just need to send someone to investigate it," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Yang Zhenpan furrowed his brows again. He pondered for a moment and then took out his mobile phone and dialed a cell number. After his call was picked up, he said, "Help me investigate the situation of the magnificent Tang Corporation. I want to know the result within 3 minutes." "Understood." Yang Zhenpan hung up the phone and directly sat on a chair at the side. He then said with a smile, "Wait for me for 3 minutes, little brother. It shouldn't be a problem, right?" Tan Xiu nodded and then sat down. The lobby manager and the middle-aged man behind the long table were at a loss whether they had to cry or laugh at this time. They looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression. They were really speechless because the person Tan Xiu was looking for was the general manager of the Glory Auction House, Ho Qingmin. And the person sitting next to him was the big boss of the Glory Auction House, as well as Ho Qingmin's immediate superior. However, the big boss had just hinted to them not to talk too much, so they could only sit at the long table, feeling both amused and angry at the same time and busy themselves with their own matters. Writing all night for the sake of continuously updating. Brothers and sisters, smash your tickets. Chapter 400. More than 2 minutes later, Yang Zhenpan received the result he wanted. It was just a small amount of information, but it still made his complexion slightly change and his eyes burst out with a bright light. "I got it." After hanging up the phone, Yang Zhenpan looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and asked, "Brother Tang, I think your inference is very reasonable. The magnificent Tang Corporation has great potential and is definitely likely to become a dark horse in the business world in the next few years. I was fortunate enough to drink God's nectar once. At that time, my friend boasted about it to the heavens, and I have the same feeling. The other two products of the magnificent Tang Corporation, the skin care lotion and the scar removal cream, have also risen to prominence. Although they haven't caused too much of a sensation, they are also highly praised. Since I've answered your question, shouldn't you take me to see Ho Ching Min? Tan Xiu got up and said. Why are you looking for Ho Ching Min? Yang Zhenpan got up and curiously asked. I just want to inquire about something, said Tan Xiu. Seeing that Tan Xiu didn't want to say more, Yang Zhenpan immediately nodded and said, then come with me. I just called him half an hour ago. He's in the general manager's office. All right. Shortly after, Tan Xiu followed Yang Zhenpan and smoothly arrived at the general manager's office of the Glory Auction House. Yang Zhenpan knocked on the door and then pushed it open and entered. You've come, boss. Inside the office, Ho Ching Min smiled and got up from his office chair as he strode out to greet him. However, when he saw Tan Xiu behind Yang Zhenpan, he was slightly startled and asked with a puzzled expression, Who is this, boss? Tan Xiu raised his brows and looked at the silent Yang Zhenpan with a smile. Only then did he realize that Yang Zhenpan was the big boss of the Glory Auction House. However, he wasn't interested in who the Glory Auction House's big boss was. He just came here to inquire about the buried diamond. You're Chief Ho Ching Min, right? I'm Tan Xiu, the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss. Tan Xiu extended his hand to Ho Ching Min and calmly said. Hello, Boss Tang. A surprised look appeared on Ho Ching Min's face. He had some knowledge about the magnificent Tang Corporation. As a wine addict, he was very fond of the company's God's Nectar. Unfortunately, he had spent a lot of effort only to obtain 2 bottles of God's Nectar. At the side, Yang Zhenpan also revealed a surprised expression. He looked at Tan Xiu again, and a bit of surprise grew in his heart. Tan Xiu didn't guess that he was the Glory Auction House's big boss. He originally thought that it was interesting, but he didn't expect that Tan Xiu turned out to be the magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss. Tan Xiu said, Chief Ho, I don't like to beat around the bush. I've always been straightforward. So, I got straight to the point. The reason I'm looking for you this time is to inquire about the buried diamond. Can you tell me if the buried diamond belongs to your auction house or another client? This, Ho Ching Min hesitated and turned to look at Yang Zhenpan. Yang Zhenpan was silent for a moment before he smilingly said, Brother Tang, since you've come to our Glory Auction House, you're our guest. Don't be anxious. Let's sit down and drink tea while we slowly discuss it in detail. How about it? All right. Tan Xiu nodded. After sitting down on the sofa, Ho Ching Min personally brewed tea and poured it for Yang Zhenpan and Tan Xiu. Then, he sat down on the empty sofa at the side. Yang Zhenpan took the teacup and gently sipped the tea. Then, he slowly said, Boss Tang, it's reasonable to say that our Glory Auction House has a rule that we can't reveal the source of every item auctioned in our auction house. However, since Boss Tang has come here personally, I'll answer your question. The buried diamond doesn't belong to our Glory Auction House. A distinguished guest entrusted us to auction it on his behalf. Who is he? Asked Tan Xiu. I need his contact information. Yang Zhenpan shook his head and said, I'm sorry. We can't reveal the client's information. I must know it. Tan Xiu said with a serious expression. Yang Zhenpan squinted his eyes as he looked at Tan Xiu and said, Boss Tang, I respect you as the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss, so I revealed some information to you. But I hope you won't make things difficult for me. Our auction house has its own rules. The buried diamond is too important to me. I must know who the owner of the buried diamond is, said Tan Xiu calmly. In order to get the information I need, even if I have to do it by hook or by crook, I will find out. I'll give you half an hour. If you can give me the answer within half an hour, I'll owe you a favor. If you can't give me a satisfactory answer, I can't guarantee that I won't do anything to your Glory Auction House. Arrogant. Ho Ching-min abruptly stood up with an angry expression on his face. On the contrary, Yang Jinpan looked solemn as he squinted his eyes and sized up Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu raised his eyelids and felt the faint aura emanating from Ho Ching-min's body. Then, he indifferently said, "Manager Ho, I advise you to put away your ignorance. You can't even break through the first layer of the 1,000 revolution array. Not only will you seek abuse, you'll also make a fool of yourself." Ho Ching-min's complexion changed as he said in a deep voice, "You know the everlasting feast hall's 1,000 revolution array. You." Ring, 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 Tan Xiu's cell phone in his pocket rang. The ringtone interrupted Ho Ching-min's words. Tan Xiu glanced at him and pressed the answer button. After hearing Qi Nan's voice, he lightly said, "I'm in the general manager's office on the 28th floor." After saying that, he directly hung up the phone. For a moment, the atmosphere inside the general manager's office was heavy. Knock, knock, the door was knocked. A faint smile hung on Qi Nan's face. Under Yang Jinpan's and Ho Ching-min's surprised eyes, she came before Tan Xiu and respectfully called out, "Boss." Tan Xiu pointed to Ho Ching-min and indifferently said, "You said that you have a bit of friendship with him, so you asked him to tell me about the buried diamond." "The buried diamond?" A surprised expression appeared on Qi Nan's face. In fact, she had also seen the introduction of the buried diamond from the TV advertisement. She also knew that the Glory Auction House would auction this precious diamond on October 1st. Ho Ching-min looked at Tan Xiu and Qi Nan in disbelief and hurriedly asked, "Chief Qi, what did you just call him?" "Boss?" At this moment, Qi Nan also felt that the atmosphere in the office was a bit strange. She nodded and said, "Yes, he's the everlasting feast hall's boss." "Chief Ho, although I don't know why boss wants to know about the buried diamond, I hope you can tell me the truth." Ho Ching-min's lips squirmed a few times, but he swallowed back the words that were about to come out of his throat. At this moment, he finally revealed a bit of fear and realized how terrifying the threat posed by Tan Xiu was. He was a martial artist who had personally visited the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in Jingmen Island to break through the 1,000 revolution array. Naturally, he knew that the Everlasting Feast Hall had a lot of powerful experts. Yang Jinpan suddenly let out a faint smile and said, "I really didn't expect that Boss Tang is really young and promising. You're not only the magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss, but also the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. However, you want to threaten me with just your identity? I don't think you're qualified enough, no?" As his words faded away, Ho Ching-min's heartbeat sped up and he quickly winked at Yang Jinpan. However, Yang Jinpan ignored him and stared straight at Tan Xiu. "Are you really sure that you don't want to tell me?" Tan Xiu calmly asked. "I don't want to." Yang Jinpan sneered. Tan Xiu got up and looked at Qi Nan, saying, "Call Gu Xiaoxue and tell her to send someone to inquire about the buried diamond. Also, since the Glory Auction House has given us face, we must return the favor. Secretly investigate all the VIPs who have received the Glory Auction House's invitation. Our Everlasting Feast Hall will give them better compensation for the things they want from the Glory Auction House. I don't want to see anyone participate in the Glory Auction House's auction." "Understood." Qi Nan's expression changed as killing intent burst out from her eyes. "Wait." Ho Ching-min was anxious and quickly called out, "Boss Tang, don't be anxious. It's not that our boss doesn't want to tell you, but the owner of the buried diamond has a very strong background that we can't afford to offend. How about this? I'll make a call first. If the seller is willing to see you, we'll help you introduce him." Ho Ching-min. Yang Jinpan suddenly got up with an angry look on his face. Ho Ching-min acted as though he didn't see Yang Jinpan's anger and spoke to Tan Xiu, "Boss Tang, your purpose is very clear. You just want to get the information about the owner of the buried diamond. Our Glory Auction House also doesn't want to offend a friend, so please wait for a while. How about it?" Tan Xiu shot a cold look at Yang Jinpan and then slowly sat back on the sofa. He nodded and said, "I'll wait for your news." Ho Chi Minh quickly nodded and quickly grabbed Yang Jinpan's arm, pulling him out of the office. Just as they came outside, Yang Jinpan forcefully shook off Ho Chi Minh's arm and shouted in a deep voice, "What do you mean, Ho Chi Minh? I won't let this go if you don't give me a clear explanation today." Ho Chi Minh took a deep breath and said with a serious face, "Boss, I stopped you just now because I respect you as the boss. If you insist on having a conflict with Tan Xiu, I can only resign. Because I'm more afraid of him than I am of you. He's just a newly developed magnificent Tang corporation and a restaurant owner. You say you're more afraid of him than you are of me? Are you kidding me? I, Yang Jinpan, have a lot of wealth and connections. My Yang family is a big and prestigious family in the imperial capital. Even if we can't be ranked in the top 3, it won't be a problem for us to be in the top 10. I really don't believe how capable he is. Boss, the Everlasting Feast Hall's existence is very special," Ho Chi Minh slowly said. "As far as I know, the Everlasting Feast Hall has a lot of powerful experts. Of course, if it's only these, it won't cause me to be afraid. I'm suspecting that there's a special person in the Everlasting Feast Hall." "A special person?" Yang Jinpan frowned and asked in a deep voice, "What kind of special person?" Ho Chi Minh looked to both sides and found that there was no one nearby. He then lowered his voice and said, "A cultivator." Chapter 401. Chapter 409 was written by Quiet Night when she was extremely sleepy, so her thoughts were a bit intense, causing trouble for the brothers and sisters in reading. Quiet Night has seriously revised it after reading the comments section. Please forgive me, brothers and sisters. Yang Jinpan had his own pride. Although he had always been low-key and had a humble character, his unyielding character was real. Today, he had a chance to meet Tan Xiu. Because of a few words, he had a trace of interest in Tan Xiu, and because of a question, his interest in Tan Xiu had increased a lot. However, he didn't expect that this young man, who seemed to have some temperament, turned out to be the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation and the Everlasting Feast Hall, two completely unrelated companies. What was most unbelievable was that this young man dared to threaten him and act insolently in front of him. He was furious. He wanted to teach this young man a lesson so that he would know the truth of modesty in the future. However, upon hearing Ho Chi Minh's address, Yang Jinpan's heart suddenly tightened and a chill quickly grew inside him. As a member of a prominent family in the imperial capital, the field he came into contact with was not something ordinary people could compare with. Naturally, he had heard about the existence of cultivators through various channels. In his view, the number of cultivators was very small, simply as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. However, any of these people had mysterious and unfathomable abilities. I'd rather believe it than not. Yang Jinpan was a cautious person and instantly made a decision. Ho Chi Minh watched the change in Yang Jinpan's expression. His heart was stretched taut, for fear that Yang Jinpan wouldn't listen to his opinion. After hesitating for a while, he asked in a low voice, "Boss, your decision is, if the Everlasting Feast Hall really has such people, can we afford to provoke them?" Yang Jinpan forced a smile. "There's also that Tan Xiu. His performance is too strong and abnormal. There's definitely something fishy going on. Let's contact the seller of the buried diamond first. If he agrees, then we'll throw this hot potato to him. If he doesn't agree, we'll just give up helping to auction the buried diamond." "Shall I contact him?" Ho Chi Minh asked in a low voice. Yang Jinpan was silent for a moment and slowly said, "I'll contact him myself." "All right." Ho Chi Minh nodded lightly and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. In the suburbs of Shanghai, an ordinary house was located in a fruitful orchard. In front of the small courtyard of the house was a clear little river that gurgled and flowed. Occasionally, fish would leap out of the surface of the river, causing splashes and layers of ripples. An old man wearing a sun hat and white training clothes was fishing quietly with a fishing rod in his hand. The big yellow dog by his feet was lying there lazily and yawning from time to time. "Grandpa, there's a call for you." A cute little girl ran out from the courtyard behind the old man. She was only 6 or 7 years old, and the black phone in her hand was still flashing with colorful lights. "Who called?" the old man asked without turning his head. The little girl giggled and said, "Grandpa, I only recognize the name Yang on it. I don't know the last 2 characters. Do you want me to look it up in the dictionary?" The old man finally turned around and took the phone. After glancing at the name displayed on the screen, he said with a smile, "Then go look it up in the dictionary." "Grandpa, take this call." "All right." The little girl replied and turned to run back to the courtyard. The old man pressed the answer button and calmly said, "What's the matter?" "Elder Wei, our glory auction house is in big trouble because of your buried diamond," said Yang Zhenpan respectfully. "Tell me about it." Wei Jiangping narrowed his eyes. "Someone wants to find the seller of the buried diamond through our glory auction house," said Yang Zhenpan. "According to our auction house's rules, we must keep it confidential for every customer, especially since the owner of the buried diamond is you. However, the other party has a big background and our glory auction house can't afford to offend them. The other party has declared that even if it means destroying our glory auction house and my Yang family, we must find the specific information about the seller of the buried diamond." Wei Jiangping raised his brows and curiously asked, "Who is the other party? To think that he has such a big tone." Yang Zhenpan forced a smile and said, "I know he has 2 identities. One is the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation, and the other is the owner of the everlasting feast hall. But I suspect that he should have other identities. After all, he's too young, only in his early 20s. Wei Jiangping shook his head. He had never heard of these 2 names. However, he had returned from abroad for 5 years and spent almost all of his time here, so he didn't know much about the domestic situation. It was normal that he didn't know the situation of these 2 companies. "Since he wants to see me, then tell him to come." "Understood." Wei Jiangping hung up the phone and was about to put it away. However, he suddenly thought of something and pondered for a moment. Then, he dialed a cell number and said with a smile, "Old friend, how about having some tea with me?" "What's the matter?" An old voice came from the phone. "I've encountered something interesting, so I want you to come and watch the fun," said Wei Jiangping with a smile. "Besides, the 4 of them are in seclusion, so I don't have anyone to chat with except you for a while. I'm quite lonely." "All right, I'll have lunch later. Prepare some fresh fish for me." "No problem." Shanghai, Glory Auction House. Yang Zhenpan hung up the phone and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After putting away the phone, he looked at Ho Qingmin, whose face was full of expectation, and slowly said, "Investigate this Tan Xiu for me. Focus on the everlasting feast hall situation." Ho Qingmin's complexion slightly changed as he forced a smile and said, "I can't investigate him, boss." Yang Zhenpan frowned and asked, "Why?" "As a matter of fact, I've sent people to investigate the everlasting feast hall many years ago," said Ho Qingmin in a low voice. "But the people I sent never came back. There's no news from them, just like a stone sinking into the sea. I've sent 3 groups of people in total. I even invited people from the detective agency later, but the situation was exactly the same. Later on, someone put a knife on my neck and told me to stop investigating the everlasting feast hall." "Who was it?" Yang Zhenpan's complexion changed as he asked in a deep voice. "Who else but the everlasting feast hall's people?" Ho Qingmin forced a smile. Yang Zhenpan's complexion changed several times before he nodded and said, "I see. You don't need to worry about this matter. Let's go and see that Tan Xiu and send him away." "Boss, did the old man agree?" asked Ho Qingmin quickly. "He agreed," Yang Zhenpan replied. After returning to the general manager's office, he saw Tan Xiu sitting on the sofa and smoking silently. He took a seat on the sofa opposite him and said, "Boss Tang, I've personally contacted the owner of the buried diamond. He agreed to see you. How can he contact you? Asked Tan Xiu. Can you give me your cell number? I'll edit the old man's address and send it to your mailbox, said Yang Zhenpan. All right. Tan Xiu reported his cell number and waited for more than a minute before he received the specific address. Tan Xiu got up and glanced at Yang Zhenpan. Then, he lightly said, originally, I owed you a favor, but I'm not satisfied with your attitude. Hence, this favor is invalid. We don't owe each other anything. After that, he quickly left the office with Qi Nan and came to the entrance of the Glory Auction House. Then, he asked, come with me. I just came back from Jingmen Island and didn't drive. Understood. Qi Nan looked happy and respectfully replied. An hour later. In the suburbs of Shanghai, in a fruity orchard. Han Jintong was riding a mountain bike and appeared outside the courtyard of a house. Beside him was a fashionably dressed and beautiful girl wearing pink sunglasses. She was also riding a mountain bike. The two of them looked at Wei Jiangping, who was quietly fishing by the river outside the courtyard. The girl then called out, Grandpa Wei, I followed Grandpa to freeload a meal. Wei Jiangping slowly put down the hunch in his hand. He got up and turned his head, saying with a smile, Qinggu also came here. It's been more than 5 years since I came back to China, but this seems to be the second time I see you. Grandpa Wei, you're an old man with a pure heart and few desires, said Han Qinggu with a charming smile. You hide in this Xanadu every day to enjoy the rest of your life, so I don't dare to come and disturb you. Wei Jiangping chuckled. He turned to look at Han Jintong and said with a smile, Old friend, your granddaughter's mouth is much sharper than yours. Let's go. The food and wine should be ready. Let's eat and talk. Didn't you call me to come here to watch the show? Asked Han Jintong. They haven't come yet, but they should be here soon, said Wei Jiangping with a smile. Let's go eat first. We'll talk after the meal. Fragrant dishes with fish and meat were served. Wei Jiangping lived here. Aside from him, his daughter-in-law and granddaughter were also there. The one in charge of cooking was a nanny hired by his daughter-in-law. Inside the dining room. They had just sat down when the sound of a car's horn came from outside the courtyard. Wei Jiangping glanced at his daughter-in-law and lightly said, Go outside and bring them in. Since they've caught up with the meal, add more chopsticks. All right. 2 minutes later, Tan Xiu and Qi Nan were brought to the dining room. When he saw the people inside, he looked slightly dazed. It was because he never dreamed that he would meet acquaintances at the dining table. Moreover, they were acquaintances he didn't want to see. Tan Xiu. Why are you here? Han Qinggu stood up in surprise and asked incredulously. Hello, Miss Han, said Tan Xiu lightly. Han Qinggu glanced at Qi Nan behind him and asked again, Tan Xiu, you haven't answered me yet. Why did you come to Grandpa Wei's place? I have something to do, said Tan Xiu. Wei Jiangping nodded to his daughter-in-law and said, add 2 sets of chopsticks. 1 set. Qi Nan stepped back and said with an indifferent expression. Wei Jiangping slightly furrowed his brows, whereas Han Jintong had a strange expression. You came with Tan Xiu, so eat with us. Han Qinggu said with a smile. Grandpa Wei has delicious food here. No need. Qi Nan stepped back again and shook her head to refuse. Han Qinggu looked at Qi Nan and then at Tan Xiu. She was confused by the relationship between Tan Xiu and Qi Nan. Just as she was about to say something, her heart suddenly jolted and she involuntarily exclaimed, I remember you. You're the manager of the Everlasting Feast Hall. No wonder I thought you looked familiar. Chapter 402. Qi Nan's expression was as serious as ever. Her eyes just glanced at Han Qinggu and then directly moved away. Tan Xiu didn't want to talk to Han Qinggu, so he looked at Wei Jiangping and cupped his fists, saying, Are you the current owner of the buried diamond, Wei Jiangping? Huh? Wei Jiangping's brows furrowed deeper. He put down the chopsticks in his hand and lightly said, "Young man, don't you know how to address me?" "I don't think I need to show respect to you if you're called Wei Jiangping," said Tan Xiu lightly. "After all, I don't dare to compliment someone who can even send out his young children for some purpose." "Children?" Wei Jiangping stared blankly and abruptly got up from the chair. Shock flashed in his eyes as he asked in a deep voice, "Who the hell are you?" At this moment, even Han Jintong quickly got up and his eyes locked on Tan Xiu without blinking. Tan Xiu lightly shook his head and said, "You're old, yet you haven't practiced your qi cultivation to perfection. No wonder you've been cultivating for so many years, yet you only have this little bit of cultivation. You'll know my identity later, but what I want to know is, did you buy the buried diamond or did you make it?" "It was carved and made by this old man myself," said Wei Jiangping in a deep voice. Tan Xiu was delighted inwardly and asked again, "You didn't make it out of thin air, did you? Have you ever seen a medicinal herb that looks like a buried diamond?" "Yes, I have seen it," said Wei Jiangping in a deep voice. "Where did you see it?" asked Tan Xiu. Wei Jiangping didn't answer Tan Xiu's question but asked back, "I've already answered several of your questions. Shouldn't you answer mine too? There were 6 of you at the beginning, but there are only 2 of you here now. There should be 4 more, right?" Tan Xiu lightly said. Wei Jiangping and Han Jintong exchanged glances. Both of them were greatly shocked. Apart from them, only that person knew about the 6 of them. How did this young man know about it? Wei Jiangping was silent for a moment and said, "Yes, there are indeed 4 more. One of them is this old man's wife." "Young man, what exactly is your relationship with Senior Gu?" Tan Xiu said, "She is my disciple." "What?" Wei Jiangping and Han Jintong exclaimed at the same time. Standing aside, Han Qinggu asked in confusion, "Tan Xiu, what are you talking about with my grandfather? What do you mean there are 4 more? What disciple?" Tan Xiu still didn't pay attention to Han Qinggu. Instead, he looked at Wei Jiangping and said, "Now, you should tell me where you saw this medicinal herb, right?" Wei Jiangping suppressed the shock in his heart and said, "Shenong Ridge, Ghost King Valley." After a moment of silence, Tan Xiu said, "Can you tell me the specific address? I need that herb. I need it badly. If you can help me obtain it, I can help you break through your current bottleneck and improve your cultivation." Wei Jiangping was shaken inwardly, but there was a forced smile on his aged face. He shook his head and said, "There's no other way. I've already plucked that particularly beautiful medicinal herb from back then and transplanted it somewhere else. However, it didn't take long for it to die. Since I don't know its efficacy and use, I didn't dare to rashly use it, so I discarded it. There shouldn't be any more of that medicinal herb there." "Damn!" Tan Xiu was furious. The demonic revival grass was absolutely a rare and precious herb. Countless supremes and great demon kings in the immortal world or demon world would fight for it if it were to appear in the immortal world or the demon world. But that rare and precious herb fell into Wei Jiangping's hands and was ruined by him. Tan Xiu's expression turned extremely ugly. After a long silence, he slowly said, "Tell me the specific address. You don't need to participate in other matters. I'll find a map and mark it for you." Wei Jiangping strode out of the dining room and quickly took a map and marked the specific location with a red pen. After handing it over to Tan Xiu, he asked, "I've told you everything you want to know. My 2 children, are you still?" Tan Xiu received the map and lightly said, "They're fine, and no one restricts their freedom. It's just that they don't want to see you and your wife. If you and your wife can live for a few more years in the future, I can help you and let them come to see you." Wei Jiangping's lips squirmed a few times. He cupped his fists toward Tan Xiu and said, "We owe them too much, Mr. Tang. Please treat them well." "They're my people, so I'll naturally treat them well," said Tan Xiu lightly. "I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave." After that, he turned around to leave. Han Qinggu was caught unprepared by the series of events. Upon seeing that Tan Xiu was about to leave, she sobered up from her daze and strode to block Tan Xiu's path. She opened her arms and shouted, "What's going on, Tan Xiu? And you, what's going on with you?" For a moment, Tan Xiu was silent. He looked at her familiar yet strange face and felt a dull pain in his heart. Despite his hatred toward Xue Qingcheng, Tan Xiu still felt a bit sad after learning that she had died. After all, it was not easy to completely forget their millennium-long relationship. He didn't want to have more contact with Han Qinggu because he didn't know how to face her. This woman whom he had loved and hated, but now seemed to have nothing to do with her, left him at a loss. Therefore, being less involved might be the best choice. You're the teacher at school, so you can instruct me about my studies. Outside of school, I hope you don't meddle in my affairs. We're not people from the same world, so keeping a distance is the best choice between us. After that, Tan Xiu pushed her arm away and bypassed her to leave in big strides. Han Qinggu was stunned. She couldn't believe her ears. Tan Xiu's words were like a bolt of lightning that fiercely struck her heart. She didn't even know what was going on, but a sense of loss was born in her heart, as well as a faint pain. "Qinggu." Han Jintong called out in a low voice. Han Qinggu suddenly quivered. Feeling the pain in her heart, she was flustered to find that her eyes were unexpectedly covered with a layer of mist. What's wrong with me?" Han Qinggu quickly raised her hand and wiped the tears that instantly welled up in her eyes. Wei Jiangping and Han Jintong looked at each other and exchanged glances. Then, Wei Jiangping immediately said, "Qinggu, let's sit down and have a meal." "He's gone. Your grandpa and I also have some things to ask you." Han Qinggu sat down in a panic. She took a deep breath to conceal her emotions and calmed herself down. Then, she said, "Grandpa Wei, do you want to ask me about Tan Xiu?" Wei Jiangping nodded and said, "That's right. Tan Xiu's identity is very unusual. If what he said is true, his identity can even be described as terrifying. So, what we want to know is, how much do you know about him?" "How much?" It was really too much. Han Qinggu recalled the scene where Tan Xiu was hit by a car in order to save her. She recalled the time when Tan Xiu was hospitalized, when she secretly visited him in the hospital. She recalled that after he recovered and returned to school, he seemed to have changed into another person, as well as what he did when he suddenly woke up from his muddle-headedness, scenes of the past. At this time, Han Qinggu was keenly aware that Tan Xiu occupied a place in her heart, much more than anyone else. "What's wrong with me? Could it be that I've fallen in love with him? Impossible. It's absolutely impossible. I'm his teacher, and he's just my student." Our ages are quite different, thoughts emerged in Han Qinggu's mind, but she quickly rejected them. Even in the end, she recalled Tan Xiu's indifferent appearance just now, as well as his words that kept people 1,000 miles away. Her heart was in a mess, and she still felt extremely depressed. "Qinggu." Wei Jiangping saw that Han Qinggu was a bit absent-minded and quickly called out. Han Qinggu looked up at Wei Jiangping. She suddenly stood up and said, "Grandpa Wei, I suddenly remembered that I still have something to do, so I won't be eating with you." After saying that, she turned around and walked out of the dining room, leaving the courtyard and riding her bicycle quickly. Wei Jiangping glanced at Han Jintong and forced a smile. "It seems that it won't be easy for us to figure out Tan Xiu's situation." "It's indeed not easy. But he has a deep relationship with Senior Gu, so we must find Senior Gu through him," said Han Jintong. "In the past, we received the cultivation technique imparted to us. Although our strength has greatly improved, it's extremely difficult to progress again. Therefore, we must find a way to find him for the sake of our immortal fate." "I'll call Yang Zhenpan," said Wei Jiangping. A few minutes later, Wei Jiangping hung up the phone and said with a pleasantly surprised expression, "I got it. It's the Everlasting Feast Hall. Shanghai, the Everlasting Feast Hall." After Tan Xiu and Qi Nan left the orchard, they came to the everlasting feast hall. Since they hadn't eaten yet, Tan Xiu stayed in the manager's office and ate the meal personally served by Qi Nan. "Boss, are you going to Shenong Ridge?" Qi Nan, who was accompanying Tang Xiu at the side, asked curiously while cleaning up the tableware after seeing him finish eating. "I have to go there," said Tan Xiu. "The thing I'm looking for is very important. I must try it even if there's only a 1 in 10,000 chance." "I'll go with you," said Qi Nan quickly. "No need. You'd better go back to Jingmen Island in the near future." Tan Xiu shook his head. "What for?" asked Qi Nan, confused. Tan Xiu glanced at her and lightly said, "Your opportunity has come. Go to Jingmen Island to learn from Ji Qimei, so that you can be of better use to me in the future." "The opportunity has come?" Qi Nan stared blankly for a moment before a look of ecstasy appeared on her face. She had been waiting for so many years and had made great contributions to the everlasting feast hall. Now, she finally got the opportunity that she had been dreaming of. It made her so excited that she nearly jumped up. "Thank you, boss." Qi Nan knelt on one knee in front of Tan Xiu and thanked him with a grateful expression. She knew that this opportunity must have something to do with Tan Xiu. After all, it was because of Tan Xiu's appearance that the core members of the everlasting feast hall began to be taught cultivation techniques. Chapter 403. You don't need to thank me. Tan Xiu lightly said, "There's no need to thank me. You've done a lot for the everlasting feast hall all these years, so it's time to give you that opportunity. I hope you can cultivate well in the future. Getting that opportunity is just the beginning. How far you can cultivate in the future is directly related to your efforts and contributions to the everlasting feast hall." "What's the connection, boss?" asked Qi Nan curiously. "It's very much related. I've made a decision that every core member of the everlasting feast hall can only get cultivation resources if they make great contributions to the everlasting feast hall," said Tan Xiu. "Otherwise, they will have to desperately cultivate by themselves, and their cultivation speed will obviously be much slower than the members who get cultivation resources. Furthermore, whoever can get a lot of resources and hand them over to the everlasting feast hall will also get cultivation resources." "For example?" asked Qi Nan quickly. "For example, you can get a lot of precious herbs, ores, fierce beasts' bones, and other materials and give them to the everlasting feast hall," said Tan Xiu. "You can get refined medicinal pills, magic weapons, and other items from the everlasting feast hall." Qi Nan's eyes lit up and her breathing turned rapid. She nodded repeatedly and gratefully looked at Tan Xiu, saying, "I got it, boss. Ji Qimei hasn't called you back yet, which means that she hasn't started carrying out my order." Tan Xiu let out a smile. "So, you're the first to know about it. If you're smart, I believe you don't need me to continue giving you pointers, right?" Qi Nan's smile was exceptionally bright as she nodded and said, "You don't need to give me pointers anymore, boss. Since Elder Ji hasn't called everyone back yet, I can buy a lot of materials in advance. By the time everyone gets the news, I'm afraid they will scramble to buy materials from all over the country. By then, the price will double, and the number of good things we can buy will be reduced. You're worth teaching." Tan Xiu nodded. He then got up and said, "All right, I've eaten and drunk enough. Send me back to the Blue Star Villa complex first. I'll take a rest and then rush to the Shenong Ridge." "All right." Although Qi Nan wanted to buy materials now, she still sent Tan Xiu to the Blue Star Villa complex. In the villa, Shui Chao was basking in the sun in the yard while his wife, Du Wan, was knitting a sweater. In front of them, their son was sleeping soundly. "Big bro Tang, you're finally back." When Shui Chao saw Tan Xiu, he immediately stood up with a smile. Tan Xiu looked at him and smiled. "Are you feeling better?" Shui Chao nodded and said, "I haven't fully recovered, but I'm almost there. As long as I don't do any heavy exercise, I'll be able to walk and live normally." Tan Xiu laughed and said, take a good rest. The military training should be over soon. Once it's over, we'll go to school. Xue Chao let out a simple and honest smile and said, Big Bro Tang, you must go to class. But the job you mentioned. Can you introduce me to it now? Although I haven't fully recovered from my injuries, we mountain people have strong bones, so it won't affect our work. Tang Xiu realized something and quickly asked, Is it because you don't have any money? I'll give you more. Xue Chao waved his hand and said, Big Bro Tang, you lent me more than 1,000 yuan. It's enough for the three of us to use for some time. I just don't want to stay at home every day. If I don't move my body, I feel like I'm going to rust. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he nodded and said, All right. Do you have a driver's license? No. Xue Chao shook his head and forced a smile. The place I'm going to introduce you to work is a bit far from here, Tan Xiu said. You're still injured, so you might as well live there if you have to toss and turn every day. How about letting sister-in-law and your child live here, and you rest there at night? Is there a place to live there? Asked Xue Chao. I'll tell her about it and arrange a place for you to live, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Xue Chao looked at his wife and child and suddenly asked, Big Bro Tang, what kind of accommodation will you arrange? If it's possible, I want to take my wife and child with me. We've been living here for more than 10 days. If we can work there and have a place to live, we'll go there. All right. Tan Xiu nodded. I'll give you the address. You go directly to Chi Nan and tell her that I told you. She'll arrange it for you. Also, I may be away for some time, so I'll see you again when I come back. All right. Thank you, Big Bro Tang, said Xue Chao gratefully from the bottom of his heart. No need to thank me, Tan Xiu waved and said, We're classmates. There was a saying that went, once classmates, 3 generations of family, we should help each other. That's right, when are you going to go there? I can drive you there if you're in a hurry. Forget it. We'll just take a car. Xue Chao shook his head. You're busy with your business. I'll buy you a drink with my salary when you come back. All right. Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu simply packed his things and directly left the Blue Star Villa complex. Since Shanghai was thousands of miles away from Shinong Ridge, he was going to book a plane ticket to Philadelphia. But what made him speechless was that the passenger flow during the summer vacation was too high and the plane tickets had long been sold out. In desperation, he could only choose to take the high-speed rail. Fortunately, he was lucky enough to buy a high-speed rail ticket. At 3 a.m. in the night, Tan Xiu walked out of the Philadelphia high-speed rail station. The crowd outside was bustling with activity, unlike the tranquility of the late night. Tan Xiu followed the flow of people for tens of meters and then saw a scene that surprised him. 8 burly middle-aged men in black suits were standing behind a tall woman in a white dress, quietly waiting for someone. No one dared to approach them. Many people were pointing at them and discussing in low voices. Tan Xiu had a good hearing. From the discussions around him, he knew that the woman was the secretary of the Yellow Steel Group's boss in Philadelphia. She was a famous woman in Philadelphia. Tang Xiu did not stay for a long time. Those people had nothing to do with him. Before he came here, he had checked the map and learned about his itinerary. He knew that before he rushed to the Shinong Ridge from Feicheng City, he needed to take a bus to Ziming County near the Shinong Ridge, and then from Ziming County to Ghost King Valley, which was in the Shinong Ridge. Brother, do you want to take a bus? A young man in his mid-20s, with a small tuft of yellow hair and earrings in his ears, saw Tan Xiu coming out empty-handed, so he came over with a smile. Tan Xiu looked at him and asked, Do you want to go to Ziming County? The young man was stunned and carefully looked at Tan Xiu. He hesitated and said, Brother, the fare to Ziming County is not cheap. Tan Xiu said, Money doesn't matter. I need to hurry. The young man said, 450 yuan. Give me 450 yuan and I'll send you there. Tan Xiu said, Okay. Where's your car? The young man subconsciously touched his waist and then put it down. He pointed to a place not far away and said, "It's over there. Come with me." 2 minutes later. The young man led Tang Xiu to a black Mazda sedan. He reached out to open the door and said, "Brother, the road to Ziming County is not easy to walk on. So we can't go fast. Even if we get there, I'm afraid it will take more than 2 hours." Tan Xiu sat in the front seat and nodded. "The time doesn't matter. Just drive slowly and pay attention to safety." "Okay," the young man replied. After sitting in the driver's seat, he started the car and left quickly. However, the young man was obviously a friendly person. He glanced at Tan Xiu and said with a smile while driving, "Brother, my name is Chang Hao." "What's your name?" "My surname is Tang." Chang Hao said with a smile, "Brother Tang, judging from your accent, you shouldn't be from here, right? Are you here on vacation? Or visiting relatives?" "It's a vacation," Tan Xiu said. Chang Hao nodded and said, "There are many tourists who come here for vacation, especially to Shenong Ridge. There are many of them at this time of the year. But you're alone, and you don't even have any luggage with you. This is my first time seeing you." "It's good to go out alone," said Tan Xiu calmly. A trace of envy appeared on Chang Hao's face as he said, "You're so free and unrestrained, Brother Tang. I also want to walk around and see the world. But I'm forced to work from dawn to dusk to support my family. Alas, if I don't work hard to make money, I won't have enough money to feed my child." "You're driving an illegal car, aren't you?" asked Tan Xiu. "Why don't you get a business license and drive a taxi?" Chang Hao forced a smile and said, "It costs a lot of money to get a business license these days. If I want to buy a taxi, it's even more sky high. I might as well raise my wife and children with that money. Although I'm driving an illegal car, I earn money from my conscience. At worst, I'll take a break during the crackdown." Tan Xiu nodded and didn't have the desire to chat anymore. He said, "I'm going to sleep. Wake me up when we arrive." "All right," Chang Hao replied. Time fleeted by. Not long after Tang Xiu fell asleep in a daze, the sound of the emergency brake woke him up instantly. With his quick reflexes, he pressed his hands on the dashboard in front of him and pulled the seatbelt to stop his body. "What happened?" Tan Xiu shouted in a deep voice. Chang Hao's face was a bit pale. He turned to look at Tan Xiu and said with a forced smile, "I think I hit something." Tan Xiu raised his brows. After getting off the car with Chang Hao, he found that the car had driven to an empty suburb. There were ditches on both sides of the uneven road, and there were endless fields in the distance. As he came to the front of the car, a strange expression appeared on his face. It was because the thing the car hit was actually a wild boar. At this moment, the wild boar was lying on the ground 7 or 8 meters away with a pool of blood around it. "This luck is too bad, isn't it?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. Chang Hao's expression didn't look good. The front of his car had been smashed and the left headlight had been extinguished. It would probably cost several thousand yuan to repair it. Tan Xiu walked to the wild boar's side, reached out to pick it up and said with a smile, "It's not dead yet, but it won't be able to live." A wild boar actually appeared in this kind of place, and it just so happened to be hit by our car. It's really unlucky. Chang Hao clearly saw the appearance of Tan Xiu picking up the wild boar with the help of the headlight. A shocked expression appeared on his face. Chapter 404. Chang Hao had seen Hercules with extraordinary strength. He once had a friend who could lift a bronze lion weighing 400 to 250 pounds with his bare hands and even lift it to the top of his head. He thought that it was already very powerful to be able to do that. But at this moment, he watched as Tan Xiu lifted the wild boar weighing at least 200 to 300 pounds with one hand as if it didn't take much effort at all. He was so shocked that he didn't know what to say. Tan Xiu carried the wild boar back to the front of the car. He looked at Chang Hao's shocked face and lightly smiled. I'm quite strong, so it's easy for me to carry a wild boar. That's right, do you want this wild boar? I'll help you put it in the car if you want, but I'll throw it to the roadside if you don't. Chang Hao gulped down and quickly nodded. Yes, yes, yes. This wild boar is so big, so I can get some money if I sell it. It's not enough to repair the car, but it's better to reduce the damage. Tan Xiu nodded. The trunk couldn't fit the wild boar, so he stuffed it into the back seat. Then, he got on the car and continued on the road. 10 minutes later. 6 black SUVs roared from behind. Along with the sound of the car's horn, Chang Hao hesitated for a moment and then made way for them on the narrow road. Immediately after, the 6 cars quickly passed from the side. Tan Xiu didn't rest at this time. He was curious about the 6 black SUVs that suddenly caught up with him. He instantly released his spiritual sense. To his surprise, he saw the woman in a white dress waiting for him at the train station's exit in one of the cars, and an old acquaintance was sitting next to her. How could it be him? A strange expression appeared on Tan Xiu's face. He hesitated for a moment and suddenly said, "Speed up and catch up with the 6 cars in front." Why are we chasing them? Chang Hao was confused. I told you to chase them, so just do it, said Tan Xiu. I'll give you 1,000 yuan later if you can catch up with them. Chang Hao quivered and immediately stepped on the accelerator, causing the car to speed up in an instant. In just a few minutes, the distance between the 2 vehicles and the off-road vehicle in front was only a dozen meters. Under Tan Xiu's order, he kept pressing the horn. In front. In the 3rd black SUV, Li Laozhan, who was taking a nap with his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes and slightly furrowed his brows. He glanced at the back and asked, "What's going on?" "Our car just overtook another car," said Ji Shiyan. "The other party is now chasing us and constantly honking. Should we stop and teach him a lesson?" "Forget it. Let's keep going." Li Laozhan shook his head. A few minutes later. Li Laozhan finally became impatient due to the incessant car sounds behind him and said in a deep voice, "Stop the car and send someone to check it out." "All right." Ji Shiyan agreed and immediately ordered the car to stop. When the 7 cars stopped, Ji Shiyan directly got out of the car, followed by 4 strong men. When she saw Tan Xiu coming out of the car behind, she strode toward Tan Xiu and coldly said, "What's the matter?" Tan Xiu pointed to the off-road vehicle in front and lightly said, "I want to hitch a ride." "Bastard! Don't you have a car?" Ji Shiyan angrily said. Tan Xiu's face turned cold and said, "Let me give you a piece of advice. Be civilized with your words. If it weren't for Fatty Li's face, I would have torn your mouth." Ji Shiyan's expression slightly changed. Anger grew in her eyes, but she didn't flare up. Instead, she vigilantly looked at Tan Xiu and asked, "Who are you? How do you know that Mr. Li is in our car?" "Cut the crap. Call Fatty Li down and tell him that I want to hitch a ride," said Tan Xiu. Ji Shiyan was silent for a moment. She then turned around and winked at the 4 strong men. She then walked to the front of the off-road vehicle, knocked on the window and said, "Boss Li, someone behind knows that you're in the car and wants to hitch a ride. What do you think?" Li Laozhan stared blankly and asked in surprise, "He knows that I'm in the car. What's his name?" "I don't know." Ji Shiyan shook her head. Li Laozhan couldn't help laughing and said, "I didn't expect that I'm so famous here. You can casually bump into someone who knows me here. Let's go. I'm going to see him." As Li Laozhan got off the car, 4 strong men also got off from the other 2 cars. 2 were in the front and 2 were at the back, protecting him. "Fatty Li, how come you're getting worse and worse? Do you really need such a big formation to protect you?" Tan Xiu ridiculed Li Laozhan from more than 10 meters away when he was about to walk to the black off-road vehicle. Li Laozhan was slightly dazed. He quickly walked a few steps forward and saw Tan Xiu with his arms crossed and a faint smile on his face. He immediately waved his hand to signal the two bodyguards in front to make way. He then strode toward Tan Xiu with an incredulous expression on his face. "Brother Tang, you. How come it's you?" Tan Xiu smiled and opened his arms to hug Li Laozhan. Then, he said with a smile, "What's wrong? You can come here, but I can't." Li Laozhan suppressed his shock and a happy expression appeared on his plump face. He then burst into laughter and said, "It's said that we're fated to meet each other from thousands of miles away. It seems that Brother Tang and I are really fated. We haven't seen each other for a long time since we parted in Saipan, right? Originally, I was planning to go to Shanghai to look for you when I had time. How was it? You went to Shanghai University to fool around, right? Did you pick up some beautiful campus belle?" Tang Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm such a pure and innocent young man. How could I run to the university to pick up beautiful girls? Anyhow, I'm quite surprised." "Why did you come here?" "I came here to talk about business," said Li Laozhan with a grin. "It shouldn't be a problem for me to hitch a ride with you, right?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. "No problem at all," said Li Laozhan with a happy face. "I'm more than happy that you can hitch a ride with me." "Ah, that's right. Let me introduce you. This is Secretary Ji Shiyan, the secretary of my partner, the Yellow Steel Group's big boss." Tan Xiu glanced at Ji Shiyan and lightly said, "I've had a taste of her. She's quite overbearing." Ji Shiyan didn't expect that Li Laozhan actually knew Tan Xiu. Moreover, the two seemed to have a very close relationship. After hesitating for a moment, she slightly bowed and said, "Mr. Tang, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were Boss Li's friend." "What's going on?" Li Laozhan was surprised. "It's nothing," said Tan Xiu. "Fatty Li, wait for me, I'll be right back." Saying, he returned to the black car's driver's window, took out 1,000 yuan from his wallet, and handed it to Chang Hao, saying with a smile, "You can drop me off here. I'll just hitch a ride with them." Chang Hao had just heard the conversation between Tan Xiu and Li Laozhan. After receiving the money, he raised his thumb and praised, "You're awesome, Brother Tang. He could even meet a big boss with a big background here. Alright then, I'll go back first. If you need a car to pick you up, just give me a call. The fare is still what we discussed before." Taking the name card from Chang Hao, Tan Xiu stuffed it into his pocket and smiled. "No problem." As Chang Hao drove away, Tan Xiu followed Li Laozhan into the SUV. Since the two of them were sitting in the back seats, Ji Shiyan had to sit in the front seat. The 6 cars started. With a smile on his face, Li Laozhan asked, "Brother Tang, how did you come here?" "That was a black car, wasn't it?" "Yeah, it was a black car," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I have something to do in the depths of Shinong Ridge, so I rushed here last night." "You have something to do in the depths of Shinong Ridge?" Li Laozhan was surprised. "Shinong Ridge isn't safe. There are wild beasts and swamp miasma everywhere. I'm looking for a medicinal herb," said Tan Xiu with a smile. Li Laozhan knew that Tan Xiu knew martial arts and was very powerful, so he nodded and said, "What medicinal herb are you looking for, Brother Tang? Do you need my help? I have a deal with the Yellow Steel Group's boss, so I still have a lot of time to accompany you to Shinong Ridge." "No need." Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, "The medicinal herb I'm looking for is very special, and it's very difficult for ordinary people to find it." In the front seat, Ji Shiyan curled her lips. She was somewhat disgusted by Tan Xiu's arrogance. "Brother Tang, you're looking down on this big brother of yours," said Li Laozhan with a dissatisfied expression. "My strength may not be as good as yours, but my skills are better than the average person. Besides, there's strength in numbers. Maybe you can find that medicinal herb earlier with my help." Having said that, he looked at Ji Shiyan and said, "Go back and tell your boss that the contract I need to sign with him will be signed a few days later." This, Ji Shiyan was secretly angry. Her anger was not directed at Li Laozhan, but the one who came out of nowhere. Tan Xiu. It must be noted that the contract signed by the Yellow Steel Group and Li Laozhan was very important. She was afraid that her boss would be anxious if it was delayed for a few days. Fatty Li, I've investigated the place we're going to in advance. Shinong Ridge's Ghost King Valley is a very dangerous place. Even I have to be very careful inside. If you go with me, I'm afraid. Tan Xiu forced a wry smile. What did you say? Ji Shiyan, who was tangled inside, suddenly exclaimed when she heard the place Tan Xiu wanted to go. Is there a problem? Asked Tan Xiu. Ji Shiyan's expression turned a bit unsightly as she hurriedly said, Mr. Tang, why don't you think about it? The Ghost King Valley is very terrifying. It's definitely the most dangerous place I know. Many people who are not afraid of death have wanted to explore the Ghost King Valley all these years. But as far as I know, no one has been able to come out alive. Therefore, the Ghost King Valley is a dangerous place in the hearts of the people of Philadelphia City. Tan Xiu glanced at her before he turned to look at Li Laozhan and said with a smile, Fatty Li, did you hear that? The place I'm going to is really dangerous. You'd better get busy with your business. I'll call you if you're still in Philadelphia after I come out from there. Let's drink a few cups of wine then. Today's 4th chapter is over. I'm weekly begging for a monthly vote _. Chapter 405. A glint flashed in Fatty Old Li's eyes as he shook his head and smilingly said, Brother Tang, I'm not interested in the place you're going. But my curiosity is piqued after listening to you. Let's do it this way. I'll take 4 bodyguards with you to enter the Shinong Ridge and go to the Ghost King Valley. Tan Xiu was a bit hesitant. But after seeing Fatty Old Li's excited look, he forced a smile and said, Come with me if it won't affect your business. We'll take a rest when we get to Ziming County. I'll buy some paper and a pen to draw the pattern of the medicinal herb. No problem. Replied Fatty Old Li with a smile. On the front seat, Ji Shiyan's eyes flashed with anger. She took out her mobile and dialed her boss's number. She told him about the situation here as well as Li Laozhan's decision. The other party was silent for a long time before he exhorted her. After hanging up the phone, Ji Shiyan turned her head and said, Boss Li, Mr. Tang, our boss ordered us to follow you to the Shinong Ridge to protect your safety. Tell your boss that I'm with Brother Tang and I don't need his protection. Li Laozhan waved his hand. Please don't make things difficult for us, Boss Li, said Ji Shiyan with a forced smile. Boss has given me a death order. Li Laozhan hesitated for a moment before he turned to look at Tan Xiu. This time, he had a sudden urge to follow Tan Xiu to explore the deep mountains and forests. On the one hand, he wanted to find the hot-bloodedness of his youth, on the other hand, he wanted to spend more time with Tan Xiu and sell a favor to Tan Xiu. As for Ji Shiyan's request, he felt that it was inconvenient for him to make the decision. He needed Tan Xiu to decide whether they would follow him or not. Upon seeing Li Laozhan's expression, Tan Xiu understood what he was thinking. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, Since you insist on following me, I won't refuse. But we need to make an agreement in advance. After entering the Shinong Ridge, I won't have anything to do with any accidents or losses to your people. I understand. Ji Shiyan said with a cold face and a stiff tone. Tan Xiu said again, Of course, if your people can help me find that medicinal herb, I'm willing to give you 10 million yuan as a reward for finding it. As for the others, I'll also give them 1 million yuan for their hard work. Of course, if we don't find it in the end, I won't pay a single cent. Ji Shiyan raised her brows as a look of surprise flashed across her eyes. Although she had deduced that Tan Xiu's identity and background might not be simple, this kind of extravagance was really surprising. After all, she couldn't imagine what kind of precious medicinal herb was worth such a generous promise from him. Ziming County. It was a very ordinary small mountainous county with a poor economic level. However, after more than a decade of tourism development, it had become quite decent. Although it could not be compared to those developed counties, it could barely keep up with the modern development. Because Ji Shiyan had booked the best hotel in the county in advance, which was not even a 3-star hotel, Tan Xiu saved himself the trouble of booking a room and directly stayed in a double room with Li Laozhan. Tan Xiu took advantage of the time when everyone was eating and sleeping to draw the design of the demon revival grass. He then rested for a few hours. After lunch, he gave the drawing of the demon revival grass to everyone so that they could memorize it. "Brother Tang, are we leaving now?" Upon hearing Tang Xiu's proposal to set off, Li Laozhan immediately looked surprised. "That's right. I must find this medicinal herb as soon as possible," said Tan Xiu. "So we have to leave now and try to reach the Ghost King Valley before midnight." Ji Shiyan coldly glanced at Tan Xiu and lightly said, "Mr. Tang, I'm afraid you don't know the situation in the Shinong Ridge. Let alone leaving now, even if we leave early in the morning, I'm afraid we won't be able to reach the Ghost King Valley before dark. Although I haven't been there, I've sent some people to investigate the information about the Shinong Ridge and the Ghost King Valley this morning. We'll start to enter the mountain from a place more than 10 kilometers north of the county. We'll have to climb more than a dozen mountains and cross 2 large rivers before we can reach the Ghost King Valley. Let's try our best," said Tan Xiu. A few minutes later, everyone left the hotel and took 6 cars to quickly rush toward the Shinong Ridge. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain on the periphery of the Shinong Ridge, Ji Shiyan ordered someone to drive the cars away. She then took 4 bodyguards and followed Tan Xiu and the others to hike the mountain. At first, everyone was very relaxed. Even the 4 bodyguards that Ji Shiyan brought could keep up with everyone's footsteps. But after crossing 2 mountains, they were somewhat out of breath and their speed obviously dropped. Immediately afterward, the 4 bodyguards of Fatty Old Li took the things and followed everyone to cross another mountain. They also began to feel exhausted. "Brother Tang, how about taking a rest? We've been walking for 4 hours in one go and my thighs are starting to tremble," said Fatty Old Li with a wry smile as he looked at Tang Xiu's calm and unruffled face. "Then let's rest for half an hour." Tan Xiu nodded and said. He was very surprised. Whether it was Fatty Old Li or the 8 bodyguards, all of them were sweating and tired at this time. But Ji Shiyan only had a slight sweat on her forehead and didn't show how tired she was. After half an hour of rest, everyone began to hurry up again. In order not to waste time on the road, Tan Xiu took the 4 big backpacks from the bodyguards and climbed the mountain with both hands as if he was walking on flat ground. This situation made the 8 bodyguards stare with their eyes wide and full of shock. Even Ji Shiyan showed a look of admiration. It must be known. Each of the 4 big backpacks weighed dozens of kilograms. The 4 big backpacks added up to more than 200 kilograms. Tan Xiu's strength and physical fitness amazed everyone. Night fell. Everyone stopped halfway up the 5th mountain and found a flat place, so they decided to stay here and set up camp, preparing to spend the night here. "You guys wait here. I'm going to get some game. We'll have barbecue tonight." Tan Xiu looked at the tired and panting people sitting on the ground. He casually said something and quickly went into the nearby mountain forest. Li Laozhan raised his arm, ready to stop Tan Xiu. But Tan Xiu's speed was too fast. Before he could say anything, he saw Tan Xiu's figure disappear into the woods. A helpless expression immediately appeared on Li Laozhan's face. "Who is he, Boss Li?" At this moment, Ji Shiyan was deeply curious about Tan Xiu. It was because they didn't have a particularly smooth journey along the way. There were several times when they encountered wild beasts, but Tan Xiu rushed to the front and drove the beasts away. There were even several times when he lent a hand to pull the exhausted and miserable people up to the stone wall. Li Laozhan grinned and said, "It's him. He's an eccentric person. Even I can't see through him, little brother. Don't look down on him, Secretary Ji. I've seen people who looked down on him, and they were miserably abused by him." Ji Shiyan hesitated for a moment and then said in a low voice, "He's indeed very powerful. He can walk in this mountain like it's flat ground, so he should know martial arts. But he's a bit too arrogant. Li Laozhan couldn't help laughing and said, arrogant? Little brother Tang is very modest, alright? You think he's arrogant because he's not pleasing to your eyes. He's indeed very annoying, said Ji Shiyan. Forget it. I won't say much about it. You'll know what kind of person he is when you have more contact with him in the future. Li Laozhan smiled and said, but I still want to advise you not to provoke him. Not to mention you, even if it was your boss, if he provoked him, I'm afraid that he would also suffer a great loss. Ji Shiyan quickly said, Boss Li, you haven't told me where he came from yet. He has a lot of identities, but I won't tell you the specifics. Li Laozhan said with a smile. But you must remember my words. Don't provoke him. Don't cause trouble for yourself and the Yellow Steel Group. Else, I'll never cooperate with you again if he wants to deal with you. I understand. Ji Shiyan nodded. She was even more curious about Tan Xiu's identity. Let everyone rest for a while and then start setting up the tents. Li Laozhan said with a smile. Also, send some people to pick up some firewood. We'll have barbecue later. Contempt flashed in Ji Shiyan's eyes as she said, Don't tease me, Boss Li. He said he's going to get some wild game. Did you really take it seriously? This mountain forest is pitch black. Although it's not to the point where you can't even see your own fingers, hunting is. Before Ji Shiyan could finish speaking, it was as though a pair of invisible hands had strangled her neck at this moment, causing her to choke back her words. A dull expression appeared on her beautiful face as she looked incredulously at Tan Xiu, who came out of the darkness, as well as the deer in Tan Xiu's hand. Wow! Brother Tang, you're amazing. It's only been a few minutes, yet you actually got such a good thing. Li Laozhan crawled up from the ground and exclaimed with shining eyes. Tan Xiu reached out and threw the deer that had been strangled to death to the ground. Then, he said with a smile, My luck is pretty good. I found a lone deer. Who among you can barbecue meat? Li Laozhan licked his lips and grinned, I don't know about others, but I, Fatty Li, am very good at barbecuing meat. That's right, Secretary Ji. Your people have bought a lot of daily necessities. Did they buy any condiments for barbecue? I've seen the list they bought. There are condiments for barbecue. Ji Shiyan nodded. As a matter of fact, one of my bodyguards used to be a hunter in the mountains. That's great. Li Laozhan exclaimed in admiration. He picked up the deer's carcass and strode to the side. Ji Shiyan turned to look at Tan Xiu. Although it was dark, the distance between them was relatively close, so she could clearly see Tan Xiu's calm expression. After hesitating for a moment, she asked, Mr. Tang, how did you do it? It's very simple. I'm faster and stronger than it, said Tan Xiu lightly. Chapter 406. Ji Shiyan could only be described as speechless toward Tan Xiu's words. This kind of simple and easy-to-understand explanation was very perfunctory. Just now. She didn't ask about Tan Xiu's identity from Li Laozhan. Therefore, she intended to ask him personally. She organized her words inwardly and then said, Mr. Tang, we've been partners since we entered the Shinong Ridge. But I know nothing about you. Can you introduce yourself? Tan Xiu seemed to have seen through her thoughts as he smilingly said, You want to inquire about my identity and background, don't you? Didn't Fatty Li tell you? He didn't. Ji Shiyan shook her head. Actually, you don't need to know about my background. Tan Xiu chuckled and said, We're just strangers who met by chance. Because we just met by chance and simply became companions. After leaving the Shinong Ridge, our life trajectories may no longer intersect. So it doesn't matter who I am. Anger flashed across Ji Shiyan's face, but she quickly suppressed her anger. She didn't have a good impression of Tan Xiu to begin with. Now that she heard Tan Xiu's words, her impression of Tan Xiu became worse. Therefore, she didn't bother to pay attention to Tan Xiu anymore. She turned around and walked toward her bodyguards to help set up the tent. A cool mountain breeze blew. Tan Xiu closed his eyes and quietly cultivated. The air in the deep mountain forest was very fresh, and the spiritual qi in the air was also very abundant. Along with the star force surging in the meridians all over his body, his perception improved a lot. Tan Xiu's ears slightly moved along with the smell of barbecue, and his closed eyes suddenly opened. "Everyone, be careful. Something is approaching us," Tan Xiu shouted. His figure floated up and the dagger, Bloodthirster, appeared in his hand out of thin air. His vigilant eyes constantly scanned the surroundings, and he released his divine sense in an instant, enveloping a radius of 200 to 300 meters. The 8 bodyguards, who had already packed up their tents and were resting, immediately jumped up and scanned the surroundings as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Even Ji Shiyan's expression changed slightly. Li Laozhan raised his head and asked, "Brother Tang, I'll leave the safety issue to you. When it's safe, we'll be able to eat the delicious barbecue." Tan Xiu smiled bitterly. Li Laozhan was really ambitious. As time passed, the indistinct sound was finally made out to be the howl of a wolf. Moreover, the sound was getting clearer and clearer. "Be careful, it's a wolf pack." A middle-aged bodyguard's expression changed slightly as he suddenly opened his mouth to warn them. Tan Xiu looked at him in surprise. He didn't expect his hearing to be so sharp. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu could only force a wry smile inwardly because several wild wolves had appeared within the range of his spiritual sense. Moreover, after these wild wolves appeared within the range of his spiritual sense, they only looked around and howled a few times. In just a few breaths, dozens of wild wolves quickly approached them. In just a few minutes, Tan Xiu found that the middle-aged bodyguard who had just warned them had found 4 or 5 branches as thick as a baby's arm and 2 to 3 meters long. He then quickly tied some scattered dry firewood to one end of the branches. "Is this a torch?" Tan Xiu came to the middle-aged bodyguard's side and asked. The middle-aged bodyguard nodded and said, "Make a torch. If we are really besieged by the wolf pack, we can pose some threat to them." "There are about 40 to 50 wild wolves within 100 meters of us," said Tan Xiu. "They are not in a hurry to attack us, but are hiding in the dark and watching us. Do you see the shrubs over there? There are 2 wild wolves hiding there, trying to spy on our situation." The middle-aged bodyguard's expression slightly changed. He immediately handed the torch to his companion and said in a deep voice, "Hurry up and light it. If Mr. Tang is right, the wolf pack should attack us in 2 to 3 minutes. I got it. It must be the smell of the roasted meat that attracted them here. Another big guy is coming. It's an adult bear." Tan Xiu sighed. "You just need to focus on the defense later and leave the hunting task to me." Li Laozhan raised his head again and said with a serious expression, "Brother Tang, don't take it lightly. This pack of wolves is cruel and very cunning. This bear is very powerful, and its speed isn't slow either. I'm afraid you'll die in their hands if you're careless. Don't worry." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I won't be the one to suffer an unexpected failure." With strength came confidence. Tan Xiu was even confident that he could easily kill the entire wolf pack and the bear by himself. However, besides him, Ji Shiyan and the bodyguards were also here. He didn't want to expose his identity as a cultivator, so he could only guarantee to solve the crisis at hand and not kill them all. Whoosh! Tang Xiu's spiritual sense shrouded him and locked on the 2 wild wolves hiding in the bushes. His footsteps dashed and he dashed toward the 2 wild wolves. Ayo! Wolf howls sounded. The moment the 2 wild wolves retreated and were about to turn around to flee, Bloodguzzler drew an arc in the air and accurately swept through the wild wolf's neck before stabbing the other wild wolf's abdomen. The Bloodguzzler dagger refined by Tan Xiu had reached the level of a magic weapon, so it easily killed the 2 wild wolves under Tan Xiu's control. Whoosh! 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 One after another, the wild wolves quickly pounced. Their eyes glowed with a green light and glinted with ferocity as they pounced toward Tan Xiu in an attempt to prey on Tan Xiu. Go to hell. Tan Xiu controlled the Bloodguzzler dagger and constantly fluttered around his body while his figure constantly bombarded the wild wolves that pounced on him. In just half a minute, more than 10 wild wolves had died in his hands, and more than a dozen were severely injured. Ayo! Mournful wolf howls reverberated in all directions as the wild wolves that hadn't been killed turned around and fled. They were cruel and cunning by nature. Facing a terrifying opponent like Tan Xiu and having lost so many of their companions, they finally chose to flee. Tan Xiu caught Bloodguzzler and used his spiritual sense to monitor the fleeing wild wolves. As they disappeared from his spiritual sense's range, he picked up a wild wolf's corpse and turned to the bonfire. Bam! Under everyone's dumbfounded expression, Tan Xiu threw the wild wolf's corpse in front of Li Laozhan and smilingly said, "I was just worried that a roasted deer wouldn't be enough for everyone to eat. Now that prey has come to our door, Fatty Li, you'll have to work hard and roast this wild wolf." Li Laozhan gulped and cautiously asked, "Brother Tang, I just heard a lot of wolf howls. You're actually able to come out unscathed despite being besieged by a pack of wolves, and you even killed one of them? Isn't this too amazing? Bringing back a wild wolf's corpse is amazing?" Tan Xiu asked with a strange expression. "If this isn't amazing, then what is?" Li Laozhan forced a smile and said. Tan Xiu pointed to the place where he had just killed the wild wolf. He then turned to Ji Shiyan and smilingly said, "Secretary Ji, I'll have to trouble you to take some people to have a look. If you think the wolf meat is good, you can bring back a few more." "What do you mean?" asked Ji Shiyan with a blank expression. "You'll know when you get there," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Ji Shiyan was silent for more than 10 seconds. Finally, she gritted her teeth and nodded. Then, she slowly walked toward the place with her 4 bodyguards. A few minutes later, she saw the scene in front of her clearly under the illumination of the torch and flashlight. Her eyes were as big as copper bells, and her beautiful face was full of shock. The 4 bodyguards around her were dumbfounded. Their hearts were beating wildly and their bodies were slightly trembling. So many wild wolf corpses. A bodyguard's lip squirmed as he murmured in a trembling voice. Ji Shiyan turned her head with difficulty and glanced at the road she came from. Then, she took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in her heart. She then said in a deep voice, "Everyone, let's move together and bring back these wild wolf corpses. Secretary Ji, we can't finish them all at once." A bodyguard called out. "If we can't finish them all at once, then we'll do it twice," said Ji Shiyan in a deep voice. "Hurry up, lest those wild wolves come back to take revenge." 4 or 5 minutes later. When Ji Shiyan pulled a wild wolf's corpse and appeared near the bonfire, the 4 bodyguards also pulled 2 wild wolf corpses. Heavens! This. Li Laoshan's buttocks jumped up from the rock for the first time. He didn't even care about the roasted venison in front of him as he exclaimed, "How come there are so many wild wolf corpses? Could it be that these wild wolves were all killed by Brother Tang?" Ji Shiyan nodded without a word and looked at Tan Xiu with a bit of fear in her eyes. She finally understood what Li Laozhan said before. Those words were definitely not alarmist talk. This mysterious Mr. Tang before her was really too terrifying. She had checked these wild wolves' corpses and found that most of them were killed by knives. 2 or 3 of them had no wounds at all except bleeding from their mouths and having their eyes burst open. What did this mean? It meant that they were killed by Tan Xiu with his bare hands. It was hard for her to imagine how powerful and fast Tan Xiu was to be able to kill these wild wolves with his bare hands. Li Laozhan strode toward Tan Xiu and said in amazement, "How powerful are you, Brother Tang? That brat from Qingqing Mountain absolutely can't do this. Didn't I tell you when we were in Saipan?" Tan Xiu chuckled. "He can't even beat my men, so how could he be my match?" Li Laozhan gulped down his saliva again as he raised his thumb and praised, "I'm convinced. I'm really convinced. No wonder Chen Zhizhong is your disciple. I can't wait to worship you as my master now. If you want to worship me as your master, you'll have to reduce your big belly first." Tan Xiu chuckled. Li Laozhan let out an embarrassed smile and was about to speak when he suddenly found that Ji Shiyan was about to leave with her 4 bodyguards. He immediately asked curiously, "Secretary Ji, what are you doing? We haven't brought all the wild wolf corpses yet. Shall we go there again?" Ji Shiyan said. "There's more." Li Laozhan suddenly jumped up and cried out involuntarily. Chapter 407. The wild wolf carcasses all over the ground shocked everyone. Everyone looked at Tan Xiu with awe in their eyes. The 8 bodyguards originally thought that their kung fu was good, but now they realized that the disparity between them and Tan Xiu was like heaven and earth. The bonfire was burning. The barbecued meat was sizzling with oil, and the aroma of the meat filled the air, but no one wanted to eat it. Under everyone's shocked expression, Tan Xiu constantly released his spiritual sense to observe the approaching bear. "It's coming," Tan Xiu suddenly said. Everyone stared blankly and looked at Tan Xiu with a confused look on their faces. "What's coming?" asked Li Laozhan with a blank expression. However, the moment he finished speaking, a huge figure appeared in his line of sight. The big black bear looked charmingly naive, but it made everyone's hearts tremble, and they revealed expressions as if they were facing a great enemy. Ji Shiyan retreated 2 steps. She suddenly thought of something and immediately shouted, "Shoot it!" Immediately, 2 of the bodyguards were as though awakened from a dream. They took out their pistols from their waists, opened the safety, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. As the black muzzles spat out flames, more than a dozen gunshots ended. The big black bear roared and loudly fell to the ground, twitching and dying. Tan Xiu retracted his spiritual sense and looked at Li Laozhan with a smile. "Fatty Li, the crisis has been temporarily averted. The barbecued meat will be burnt if you don't deal with it." Li Laozhan stared blankly for a moment and immediately rushed to the bonfire. While flipping the venison, he exclaimed in admiration, "Brother Tang, this Fatty Li has finally seen your ability today. You're amazing. When you have time in the future, you must give me some pointers. Even if I can't become a peerless expert, I can still go to Qingqing Mountain and beat that guy a few times. It's still very interesting." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "If you want to learn kung fu, you must train your big belly first." Li Laozhan forced a wry smile and said, "Losing weight is not an easy task. I've tried it many times, but it ended in failure. This mouth of mine." He couldn't afford to lose out. "Forget it, although my kung fu is not as good as yours, 3 to 5 hooligans won't be able to get close to me. This is enough. I'll give you a prescription after we leave the Shinong Ridge," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I'm only in my 40s. Kidney deficiency is not a good thing." "Kidney deficiency?" Li Laozhan was stunned, and an awkward expression appeared on his face. As for the others, whether it was the 8 bodyguards or the beautiful Ji Shiyan, they all looked at Li Laozhan with strange expressions. The barbecue is ready." In order to resolve the awkwardness, Li Laozhan hurriedly touched the bridge of his nose and shouted. Everyone held back their laughter and quickly gathered around the bonfire. They watched as Li Laozhan deftly cut pieces of venison and took them to eat. Tan Xiu really wanted to take out the god's nectar from his interspatial ring. It would definitely be more enjoyable to eat it with the venison. However, the secret of the spatial ring could not be exposed, so he could only endure it and eat the delicious roasted venison. The next morning, after everyone dismantled the tents and sorted out their things, they continued their journey. As for the corpses of the wild wolves and black bears, they could only leave them in place since they couldn't carry them. However, after traveling for more than 20 minutes, Tan Xiu excused himself to look at the nearby terrain and then quickly returned to the camp. He then put the corpses of the wild wolves and the big black bears into his interspatial ring. The rest of the journey was full of danger. After walking for more than 2 hours, they broke into a swamp. Fortunately, Tan Xiu took action and pulled out the 2 bodyguards who were trapped in the swamp. Then, just after bypassing the swamp, everyone broke into a poisonous miasma. As a result, everyone except Tan Xiu showed signs of being poisoned. Tan Xiu had medical skills, so after treating them, they finally recovered. They crossed over a mountain. They continued to encounter all kinds of wild beasts. Some of them had lived for a long time and had developed simple intellect, so whether it was their attack speed or power, they were comparable to those low-level fierce beasts. Even though Tan Xiu took action every time, the 8 bodyguards still suffered some injuries. Even Li Lao Shan's fat buttocks were torn by the sharp claws of a cheetah, which was several centimeters long. Ghost King Valley. The deep valley formed by 3 mountains was never shrouded in fog all year round. The bushes were 1 or 2 meters high, full of thorns and rugged rocks. After entering, even if one used a machete to cut a path, if the person in the front was not careful, he or she might step into a cave several meters deep. Mr. Tang, if we continue to go deeper, we will enter the range of Ghost King Valley. Now that the sky is getting dark, shouldn't we set up camp outside the Ghost King Valley first and wait until tomorrow morning to explore it? Ji Shiyan's current feeling towards Tang Xiu was no longer hatred, but worship. She was an athlete when she was a student and also practiced taekwondo, so she could be regarded as a little master. But the martial prowess Tang Xiu displayed along the way had deeply impressed her. There were even several times when she would have died under the claws of wild beasts if it weren't for Tan Xiu's help. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. Then, he slowly shook his head and said, "It's not a good choice to stay here if we want to camp. This place is actually within the range of Ghost King Valley. From the wild beasts we encountered along the way, we can tell that they are very strong and numerous. If we stay here, I'm afraid we'll have to guard against wild beast sneak attacks all night." "Then what should we do?" asked Ji Shiyan. "I'm afraid we won't have time to rest if we enter Ghost King Valley. Besides, once the sky is completely dark, the surrounding environment will be even more unfavorable for us." "Let's find a cave," said Tan Xiu. "Everyone, form a group of 3 and look around to see if there's a cave we can temporarily stay in. Although a cave is not necessarily very safe, it's much safer than sleeping outside." "There's no cave here," said Ji Shiyan with a forced smile. Li Laoshan's expression suddenly moved as he asked, "Didn't you say before, Secretary Ji? Many people have come to Ghost King Valley, but none of them came back. Maybe some people who came here are facing the same situation as us, so they dug a cave nearby. Listen to Brother Tang and look for it." "All right." Ji Shiyan complied and began to search within a kilometer in the vicinity along with her bodyguards. Very soon, a surprising piece of news was sent over. The 3 bodyguards found a cave about 700 or 800 meters away from them. The cave's entrance was not big, and the outside was overgrown with weeds. If it weren't for one of the bodyguards who was in a hurry to relieve himself, they probably wouldn't have found it. The cave is very small and can only accommodate 5 people at most. After everyone came here, they found the problem through observation and immediately looked disappointed. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and lightly said, "The space inside the cave is small, so it doesn't matter. We'll take a break and then start digging the cave. If we have a few hours, we should be able to expand the cave by 1/3. At that time, leave 4 or 5 people outside to keep watch, while the rest in the cave. As long as everyone takes turns to keep watch, we can safely pass the night." "Mr. Tang, we don't have any tools," said a bodyguard with a forced smile. "I saw that you have 2 Woyang shovels in your backpacks, don't you?" Tan Xiu said. "The rest also have daggers, so we'll make do with them first." All right." Following Tan Xiu's order, everyone began to dig. After more than 2 hours, the cave was finally expanded a lot. It was no problem for 8 people to rest inside at the same time. Roar! Just as everyone was panting from exhaustion and sat at the cave entrance to rest, a wild beast's roar came from nearby. Those with guns stay outside the cave, and those without guns enter the cave. This beast's roar is loud and clear, so I guess it's definitely a powerful big guy. You guys take defensive measures, I'm going to take a look. Tan Xiao ordered and then quickly rushed toward the direction of the sound source. His speed was not fast at first, but after he left everyone's sight, his speed suddenly soared and he shuttled through the mountain forest like a ghost. A few minutes later, his figure appeared in the bushes. Through the gaps between the branches and leaves, he saw a black rhino-like fierce beast with 4 snow-white hooves. This rhino-like fierce beast was 3 meters tall, with 2 bull-sized eyes and a more than 20 centimeters long horn on its head. In front of it, 3 nearly 2-meter-tall white tigers were constantly roaring at the rhino-like fierce beast. Looking at the situation, it seemed that they would pounce and attack at any time. That rhino-like fierce beast is definitely a high-level fierce beast, and its strength is probably not below mine. I'm afraid those 3 white tigers are also very powerful. Otherwise, that rhino-like fierce beast would have already attacked and killed them. Tang Xiu thought inwardly while hiding in the bushes. However, at this moment, he was not afraid, because although that rhino-like fierce beast was very powerful, it could not compare to the fire Qilin he had encountered in the heavenly pit. It's best if they kill each other so that when I search for the demonic resurrection grass in Ghost King Valley, it will be safer. Otherwise, with their existence, I'm afraid that only I can quietly sneak into Ghost King Valley, no one else will be able to enter. Otherwise, once I'm discovered by these fierce beasts, I'm afraid only death awaits me. After pondering for a moment, Tang Xiu secretly made up his mind. He gently bent his waist and picked up a thumb-sized stone from the ground. He then quietly circled to the other side and fiercely smashed the stone in his hand the moment he converged his aura. Angle. Very interesting. The position where Tan Xiu threw the stone was behind the 3 white tigers. The stone brushed past the body of one of the white tigers and fiercely shot towards the rhino-like fierce beast. The moment the 3 white tigers turned their heads at the same time, the rhino-like fierce beast was hit in the head. Suddenly, as if enraged, it stamped its 4 snow-white hooves and rushed towards the 3 white tigers. Its speed was extremely fast, even faster than Tan Xiu's all-out sprint. Chapter 408. Under the watchful eyes of Tan Xiu who was in the bushes, the 3 white tigers reacted extremely quickly. Almost in an instant, they jumped to the sides one after another. As their vigorous bodies twisted, they bounced back one after another. As they flew, their sharp claws tore at the rhino-like fierce beast. The rhino-like fierce beast turned its horn again and again. It raised its thick thigh, and its sharp claws stretched out from its flesh pad, colliding with the white tiger's claws. Sparks flew everywhere. One white tiger was swept away, while the other white tiger's sharp claws tore at the rhino-like fierce beast's thigh. Roar! The other white tiger opened its mouth and spat out an inner core, bombarding the back of the rhino-like fierce beast. It staggered and almost fell to the ground. However, the rhino-like fierce beast was obviously enraged. Its speed became faster, and the moment it suddenly jumped, it had already rushed to the side of the white tiger that spat out the inner core. If the other 2 white tigers were not fast enough and spat out their inner cores at the same time to hit the rhino-like fierce beast, the previous white tiger would have been stabbed to death by the rhino-like fierce beast with its horn. Even so, the white tiger was knocked more than 10 meters away and landed only 7 or 8 meters away from Tan Xiu. Roar! Roar! The 3 white tigers withdrew their inner cores one after another. The moment they swallowed them into their stomachs, they all pounced at the rhino-like fierce beast. They were ferocious, but also very brave. Every attack could cause a lot of damage to the rhino-like fierce beast, and they would also leave deep wounds on their bodies. In the battle again and again, the 3 white tigers were obviously at a disadvantage. Just when one of the white tigers was kicked away by the rhino-like fierce beast, the other two white tigers spat out their inner cores in tacit understanding and bombarded the rhino-like fierce beast. However, the rhino-like fierce beast reacted extremely quickly. In an instant, it also spat out a black inner core and collided with the two white tiger inner cores. Boom, boom, two white tiger inner cores exploded with a loud bang. The two white tigers crazily spurted out blood as they were sent flying dozens of meters away, heavily smashing into the ground and dying. Cracks also appeared on the rhinoceros-shaped beast's beast core. Just as it was about to retract its beast core, the remaining white tiger suddenly leaped up and swallowed the rhinoceros-shaped beast's beast core. Boom! As soon as the white tiger landed on the ground, its body exploded. Ong! The rhinoceros-like beast wailed, and its bull-sized eyes shed tears of blood. The moment its front hooves fell to the ground, its body also fell to the ground. Hiding in the bushes, Tan Xiu's blood boiled as he listened to the battle and roars of the four vicious beasts. There were a few times when he couldn't take it anymore and almost ran away. At this moment, Tan Xiu's eyes suddenly lit up when he saw the rhino-like beast collapse. "Let's do it!" With a roar from the bottom of his heart, the blood guzzler dagger turned into a lightning bolt under his control, piercing through the rhino-like beast's neck and then fiercely stabbing into its head. And Tan Xiu's figure instantly appeared at the back of the rhino-like beast's tail. The moment he stepped on its tail, his fist slammed into its spine. Bang! The rhino-like beast struggled to stand up, but Tan Xiu's punch was too powerful, and it was already injured, so it directly fell to the ground. Die! Tan Xiu roared, and the blood guzzler dagger, under the infusion of star force, burst out a half-meter-long blade light. With a wave of Tan Xiu's arm, the blade light swept across the back of the rhino-like beast. Ong! The rhino-like beast suddenly jumped up, as if it had exhausted the last of its strength. It madly tried to rush towards Ghost King Valley, but it only sprinted a kilometer before it crashed to the ground. Tan Xiu followed, wiped off the blood splashed on his face, and appeared next to the rhino-like beast's body. He controlled the blood guzzler dagger with his mind and pierced the rhino-like body again and again. When it stopped moving, he confirmed that it was dead. "I've made a fortune." Tan Xiu happily put the rhino-like beast into his space ring, and even the corpses of the two white tiger beasts were also put into his space ring. Draw the ground as a prison, draw the air as a seal. Tan Xiu's hands moved, and runes condensed from star force instantly floated out. Soon, a radius of tens of meters was covered by the runes. The moment Tan Xiu's God 10 merged with the runes, a rich spiritual energy from the surroundings poured into Tan Xiu's body like a tide. Because the explosion of the beast's monster core was too short, the huge energy had not dissipated at all. Tang Xiu, on the other hand, used a magical ability to envelop a radius of tens of meters to confine most of the energy. Then, he began to desperately absorb, refine, and transform it into his own cultivation. World energy. Perhaps it was not of much use to him, but the energy contained in the beast's monster core was of great help to him. He only needed to absorb and refine this energy and store it in his muscles, bones, and other places in his body. After he refined the pill, once he consumed it, he would be able to assimilate this energy and make his physique even stronger, causing his strength to advance by leaps and bounds. Tan Xiu had a feeling that when he next broke through, with such a huge amount of energy in his body, there would definitely be an unexpected surprise. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. A bright smile appeared on Tan Xiu's handsome face. He didn't expect his luck to be so good. Encountering a situation where fierce beasts fought, it ended up benefiting him. However, they were able to fight, and this was also because of him. No. Fierce beasts of this level generally appear near treasures. And the rhino-like fierce beast and the white tiger fierce beast are confronting each other, it must be for some treasure. Thinking of this, Tan Xiu was suddenly shocked. As he continued to release his spiritual force, he soon found a delicate flower in a mountain rock 700 or 800 meters away from the Ghost King Valley. This flower had a total of 7 petals, and a faint floral fragrance wafted in the air, making one's spirit quickly enter a state of excitement. No! This is a divine illusion demon flower. Damn, how can there be such a damn thing on earth? Tan Xiu's expression changed, and he instantly retreated. It was not until he retreated tens of meters away that the feeling of excitement subsided. Divine illusion demon flower. It was definitely one of the top 10 terrifying demon flowers in the demon realm. Its appearance was bright red, delicate, and there was a faint floral fragrance wafting in the air. If one smelled it, it would only make one feel excited at first, but as time went by, it would make one fall into an illusion, and the body would become more violent and excited. Even a powerful immortal, if smelling the fragrance of the divine illusion demon flower for a long time, would fall into a state of madness, and eventually explode and die. Of course. This was not the most terrifying thing about it. The most terrifying thing about it was after it was consumed. If a powerful cultivator were to use it as a medicine or concoct pills, there would only be one outcome, death. Therefore, in the demon realm, this divine illusion demon flower was also known as the flower of death. After it was used in medicine or alchemy, it was colorless and odorless, and people could not find any abnormality at all. It would not even bring any qualitative change to medicine or alchemy. When the horror in the bottom of Tan Xiu's heart subsided, some knowledge about the divine illusion demon flower flowed in his mind, and a bright smile also appeared on his face. The significance of the divine illusion demon flower was because it was the companion flower of the demonic revival grass. Where it grew, there must be demonic revival grass nearby. As long as it was alive, the demonic revival grass must be alive. Find it, I must find it. A resolute look flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes, and he continued to release his divine sense in all directions. When he released it to a place nearly 300 meters away, Tan Xiu found the demonic revival grass in the cracks of several hundreds of kilograms of stones. Up! As Tan Xiu kicked over the boulder, his eyes flashed with excitement. He carefully picked the demonic revival grass, and then put it into the space ring together with the soil. Then he released his star power to wrap the divine illusion demon flower, and also put it into the space ring. I really didn't expect that I could really find the demonic revival grass on Earth. It seems that Earth is too mysterious, and this Ghost King Valley definitely has some secrets. However, just on the periphery of the Ghost King Valley, there are already 4 fierce beasts stronger than me. If I rashly go in now, I'm afraid I won't have a good end. Anyway, I have already obtained the demonic revival grass, and since I can't stay here for long, I'll leave first. When I become stronger, I'll come back here to explore. Tan Xiu thought about it for a while and decided to leave. A few minutes later, when Yang Kai left the edge of Ghost King Valley and ran towards the cave, he suddenly heard a gunshot, accompanied by screams of pain. Something's wrong. Tan Xiu's face changed, and he suddenly accelerated. As he sprinted, he could clearly see the environment of the cave entrance, and his heart gradually sank. There were dozens of fierce beasts. Although they were all low-level fierce beasts, there were many kinds, including wild lions, cheetahs, wild dogs, and pythons. They didn't fight with each other, and it seemed that they didn't pose any threat. At this time, they were besieging the 6 bodyguards. Tan Xiu could only watch helplessly as the 6 bodyguards were torn into pieces by these fierce beasts with guns and knives. As for the 2 giant pythons, they quickly slithered into the cave. There's no way to hide. Tan Xiu secretly smiled bitterly in his heart. With a flip of his wrist, several lightning talismans and flame talismans appeared in his hand. After sprinting toward the fierce beasts, he fiercely smashed them. Boom! Inside the cave. Li Laozhan and Ji Shiyan's faces showed a desperate look. With the moonlight, they had clearly seen the tragic death of the 6 bodyguards outside. In front of them, the 2 armed bodyguards were also full of fear, constantly pulling the trigger and shooting at the 2 pythons. Unfortunately, the bullets couldn't penetrate the scales of the 2 pythons, only splashing sparks and leaving white marks on their scales. The impact of the bullets infuriated the two pythons even more, causing them to increase their speed. Chapter 409. The lightning and the explosion of the flame-warming talisman caused dozens of fierce beasts to flee in panic, but several of them were still hit and fell to the ground with serious injuries. The two pythons that were about to rush into the cave also noticed the abnormality behind them at this moment. Their cold eyes were filled with alarm as their bodies froze for 2 seconds before they turned around and fled to the sides. Fire! It was their nemesis. At this time, Li Laozhan, Ji Shiyan, and the two bodyguards in the cave also saw the scene outside. They were originally in a state of fear, but when the lightning struck down and the raging fire spread, their expressions became tongue-tied and their hearts trembled uncontrollably. What's going on? Where did the lightning come from? Where did the flames come from? At this moment, Tan Xiu's figure finally dashed to the entrance of the cave. His eyes glinted with a chilling light as he shouted to the 4 people in the cave, "Give up everything and leave this place with me. Damn, there are too many fierce beasts here. I can't kill them all, nor can I stay here to protect you. Tan Xiu. Brother Tang." After Ji Shiyan and Li Laozhan saw Tang Xiu clearly, they exclaimed involuntarily. "Cut the crap. Come out quickly and follow me," shouted Tan Xiu. "We only have one way out now, and that's to run away. Whether we can escape or not depends on our own good fortune." Li Laozhan, Ji Shiyan, and the two bodyguards came out of the cave with trembling legs. Fear and shock could be seen on their faces as they quickly came to Tan Xiu's side. Looking at the lightning and the burning flames gradually extinguished, Li Laozhan hurriedly asked, "Brother Tang, what kind of monsters are these?" "They're too terrifying. They're completely invulnerable. These are fierce beasts that have cultivated to become spirits," said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "All right, I don't have time to explain it to you now. You follow me and let's go." While speaking, Tan Xiu rushed to the front, taking advantage of the moment when the ferocious beasts fled far away. He quickly led the 3 of them to flee into the distance. A few minutes later, to Tan Xiu's helplessness, more than a dozen ferocious beasts seemed to have reacted and quickly chased after them. Run the same way you came. I'll bring up the rear." Tan Xiu took out a few fire-warming talismans again, which slowed down his speed. Ji Shiyan and the 2 bodyguards didn't slow down as Li Laozhan shouted, "Let's go together, Brother Tang. Even if it's a battle, even if I, fatty old Li, die, I'll die with you." Tan Xiu angrily shouted, "Go. I don't need you to fight alongside me. Your strength is too weak. If you stay, you will only become a burden to me." Li Laozhan gritted his teeth and sped up unwillingly. Tan Xiu held the Bloodguzzler dagger in a reverse grip and several flame-warming talismans in his other hand. Looking at the approaching fierce beasts, he did not hesitate to throw out the flame-warming talismans again. The moment a sea of fire was formed, the surrounding trees were suddenly ignited. But without hesitation, he turned around and fled again. Roar, roar, dozens of fierce beasts were forced to retreat by the flames, but a few of them fearlessly dashed into the flames. As they were burned by the raging flames, they spurted out blue mist from their mouths. As the blue mist drifted away, the raging flames were immediately extinguished. After Tan Xiu easily caught up with Li Laozhan and Ji Shiyan's group of 4, his hands instantly grabbed their shoulders. His speed sharply increased and they quickly disappeared into the distant woods. 2 minutes later, Tan Xiu had already sprinted more than 10 kilometers away with the 2 bodyguards. "You keep running. I'll pick up the 2 of them." Tan Xiu reached out and put the 2 bodyguards on the ground. Then, he turned around and returned without hesitation. When he saw the 2 bodyguards fleeing in panic, the dozens of fierce beasts behind them were not far from them. "Let's go." The moment Tan Xiu grabbed their arms, he turned around and fled without the slightest hesitation. Furthermore, 2 flame-warming talismans exploded again under his control, blocking the path of the dozens of fierce beasts. Time fleeted by. After more than half an hour, the dozens of flame-warming talismans in Tan Xiu's interspatial ring had been consumed, and he had already fled tens of kilometers away with the 4 bodyguards. They had crossed over 2 mountains. Brother Tang, it's about time, right? Li Laoshan's complexion was ghastly pale as he called out while panting. At this moment, his legs were as heavy as lead. He felt that his legs would be crippled and he would die of exhaustion if he kept running. Ji Shiyan and the 2 bodyguards were not any better than Li Laoshan at the moment. If they weren't running for their lives, they would have been unable to hold on. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he gritted his teeth and said, "No. I can't protect all of you in case those fierce beasts catch up. We must run." After saying that, he grabbed Li Laoshan and Ji Shiyan's arms again and quickly sprinted with them. This time, he sprinted for about 10 minutes before he stopped at the top of a mountain. Then, he went back to pick up the 2 bodyguards and slumped on the top of the mountain with a pale complexion. Dead silence. It was surging in the cool breeze. Li Laoshan, Ji Shiyan, and the 2 bodyguards looked at Tan Xiu with eyes that were completely different from before. If they admired Tan Xiu before, then at this moment, it was as if he was a god. Tonight. Apart from being shocked, Tan Xiu's performance couldn't be described with any other words. That magical lightning and flame seemed to appear out of thin air. They could only see such scenes on TV before. That was the power of magic. Yet, Tan Xiu's explosive speed had already exceeded the limits of human beings. They never thought that a human could run so fast. That speed couldn't be described as running, it was simply like flying. And those fierce beasts were simply like monsters. They could even spit out some strange things from their mouths. In short, what they saw, heard, and experienced tonight had made them realize that there were some magical things in this world that they had never known before. In their eyes, Tan Xiu had turned into a legendary strange person, an expert with great magical powers. "I don't think we should stay here for a long time. Let's rest for a while before we continue our journey," said Tan Xiu slowly after resting for a few minutes. "Whatever you say, Brother Tang," said Li Laoshan. "But can you answer me, how did you do it?" "Fatty old Li, there are some things you don't need to know. Even if you know, you won't be able to come in contact with those things. Instead, it will only add to your troubles," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Also, I hope you forget what you saw and heard tonight. You can't tell anyone about it." "Can't we tell anyone?" asked Li Laoshan quickly. "Even if it's our closest kin?" "No." Tan Xiu shook his head. "Consider it as repaying me for saving your lives." A glint flickered in Ji Shiyan's eyes as she directly said, "I won't tell anyone, Mr. Tang." The 2 bodyguards exchanged glances. It was all thanks to Tan Xiu that they were able to live until now, so they gratefully promised, "We won't tell anyone either, Mr. Tang." Tan Xiu nodded and looked at Li Laoshan. "Since you said so, Brother Tang, then I naturally won't tell anyone," said Li Laoshan with a forced smile. "It's just that tonight's impact on me is too big. I'm afraid I need to calm down after leaving this place." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "As a matter of fact, even if you tell anyone about what happened tonight, it will only have some impact on you. The general public won't believe what you said at all. Even some special departments of the state will likely appear in front of you because of this storm. Therefore, it will only be good for you if you don't tell anyone." "Special departments?" Li Laoshan's group of 4 moved and nodded one after another. Shortly after, everyone rested for nearly an hour before continuing their journey. However, since it was late at night, it was inevitable for them to encounter some wild beasts. But Tang Xiu was able to discover them in time and either avoid them, kill them, or drive them away. In short, they crossed 2 mountains before stopping to rest. The sun rose in the eastern mountain range. Tan Xiu sat cross-legged on a boulder and looked at the sleeping Li Laoshan's group of 4. He was very excited inside. He needed the chrono crystal and the demonic revival grass if he wanted to completely cure Gu Yan. Now that he had obtained the demonic revival grass, he only needed the chrono crystal. Tan Shou didn't have any hope for the chrono crystal to exist on Earth. It was already a great fortune for him to find the demonic revival grass on Earth. Furthermore, not only did he obtain the demonic revival grass, but he also obtained the divine phantasm demon flower. If he wanted to harm people in the future, he could use the divine phantasm demon flower to kill them without anyone knowing. At noon, Tan Shou woke up the four. Even if they hadn't slept enough, he didn't want to continue staying in Shinong Ridge, so he took them to continue their journey. Finally, late at night, everyone arrived at the foot of the mountain in the outermost periphery of Shinong Ridge. Brother Tang, I'm really sorry this time. As 6 black SUVs came to pick them up, Li Laozhan stood in front of the cars and forced a smile. Fatty Li, why did you suddenly say that? Tan Shou was puzzled. I originally intended to help you, but I became a burden to you when we arrived at Shinong Ridge. Li Laozhan forced a smile. You can't even find the medicinal herbs you want. You can rest assured that I'll keep this matter in mind after I leave this place. I'll bring more people later to help you find it. Fatty Li, I didn't tell you because you didn't ask me. Tan Shou waved his hand. In fact, I've already found the medicinal herbs I need. So you don't need to worry about the medicinal herbs anymore. You've also seen the dangers in Shinong Ridge. Even if you bring more people, I'm afraid you won't be able to return. Listen to me and don't enter Shinong Ridge again, let alone approach Ghost King Valley. You found it? Li Laozhan was surprised. How come I didn't see it? Don't worry. Tan Shou chuckled. I don't need to lie to you. That's right. Where are you going? 2 of my bodyguards died, so I need to deal with their funeral affairs, said Li Laozhan. Also, I need to sign the contract with the Yellow Steel Group earlier so I can go back earlier. What about you? Where are you going? Back to Shanghai. Tan Shou laughed. Yesterday, the 4th chapter was over. Today, the 5th chapter was over. I'm exhausted, so I'm weekly asking my brothers and sisters for a monthly vote _. Chapter 410. At Shanghai. At the entrance of the Everlasting Feast Hall, Qi Nan, who was wearing a blue and white cheongsam, kept looking at the street corner in the distance. She had received a call from the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in Jingmen Island, telling her to rush back immediately. However, just as she arrived at the airport, she received a call informing her that she no longer needed to go to Jingmen Island and that Elder Ji would be arriving at Shanghai today. Qi Nan couldn't understand why Elder Ji would come to Shanghai since her boss was not currently in Shanghai. However, Elder Ji's status was extremely high, so she must be prepared to receive him. Creak, a taxi stopped in front of Qi Nan. As the door opened, Tan Shou got off and asked, Has Ji Qimei arrived yet? Upon seeing Tan Shou, a stunned expression appeared on Qi Nan's face. But in the blink of an eye, she reacted and quickly said, Boss, Elder Ji hasn't arrived yet. Tan Shou nodded and said, Prepare some food for me first. When Ji Qimei arrives, immediately bring her to see me. Understood. Qi Nan nodded respectfully. Half an hour later, just as Tan Shou was full, Ji Qimei rushed to the Everlasting Feast Hall. Inside the general manager's office, Tan Shou took out the demonic revival grass from his interspatial ring and gave it to Ji Qimei, saying, I didn't expect that the demonic revival grass would exist on Earth. It took me some effort to find it, but I finally found it. Therefore, you're in charge of keeping it. There must be no mistake. The demonic revival grass. Ji Qimei received a call from Tan Shou, telling her to rush to Shanghai immediately. She was still full of confusion. But at this time, she finally understood the purpose of Tan Shou's sending her here. Disbelief flashed in her eyes, and her hands slightly trembled as she received the demonic revival grass. Plop, Ji Qimei knelt in front of Tan Shou and excitedly said, Thank you, Lord. Tan Shou personally helped her up and shook his head. You don't need to thank me. I should be the one thanking you. Yen Er is my disciple, and you have loyally protected her for so many years. To me, this kindness is too great. Ji Qimei stood up and put the demonic revival grass into her interspatial ring. Then, she shook her head and said, the lives of our Charm Clan's clansmen were given by Venerable Lord, and my life was also saved by Master. Protecting her is my duty. Tan Xiu nodded and said, you've just arrived in Shanghai. Go rest if you're tired, or return to Jingmen Island earlier if you're not. Yenner is in a coma. You shouldn't be away for too long. Yes, I will return immediately. Ji Qimei respectfully said. Along with Ji Qimei's departure, Qi Nan entered the office with a curious look on her face and said, Boss, why did old Ji leave in such a hurry without eating anything? Tan Xiu said, she has an urgent matter to attend to. Is there anything else, boss? Qi Nan nodded. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, no. I'll take a break and then leave. That's right, what's today's date? Today's the 21st, said Qi Nan with a smile. The 21st? Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he immediately said with a smile, fortunately, I came back in time. The freshman military training of Shanghai University should be over tomorrow. I'll take a break the day after tomorrow, and the class will officially start the day after that. It doesn't matter to you whether you start a class a day earlier or a day later, right? Qi Nan said with a smile. I didn't even participate in the military training, after all. If I were to play truant again, it would be a bit unreasonable. Tan Xiu said. That's right, how is Xuechao doing here? He's very loyal, honest, and diligent. Qi Nan nodded. The staff in our restaurant likes the family of three very much. That's good then, said Tan Xiu. Xuechao should go back to campus in 2 days, so let his wife and child stay here. You take care of them. All right. Qi Nan nodded. A trace of hesitation suddenly appeared on her face as she whispered, Boss, the Jingmen Island HQ originally told me to go back, but I had to stay here to wait for her because Elder Ji came. But now that she's gone, Tan Xiu's expression moved as he nodded and said, then arrange the work here and go back to Jingmen Island. You've gotten a lot of good things these days, haven't you? Take them all with you. Ji Qimei should give you the corresponding cultivation resources. Understood. Qi Nan was happy inwardly and quickly replied. Shortly after, Tan Xiu left the Everlasting Feast Hall and returned to the Blue Star Villa complex. Due to the many days of hard work, he was finally able to relax and breathe a sigh of relief. However, he recalled that he had yet to return to Star City and had yet to go to the magnificent Tang Corporation to hold a celebration party for the top executives. Thus, he secretly decided to return to Star City tomorrow after resting for a night. Early the next morning, while Tan Xiu was still asleep, his cell phone rang. To his surprise, the caller turned out to be Yuan Chuling, whom he hadn't contacted for a long time. Where are you, eldest brother? Yuan Chuling called out from the other end of the phone. I'm in Shanghai. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Where are you? Of course I know you're in Shanghai, said Yuan Chuling aloud. What I mean is that today's military training has ended. I heard that the first batch of students from Shanghai University has already boarded the bus and are on the way back to the campus. Our military training was completed a day earlier than yours. So, we have 3 days of vacation. Where are you now? I'll come to you. I'm at the Blue Star Villa complex, said Tan Xiu. How come you're at the Blue Star Villa complex? Yuan Chuling was surprised. I heard that the villa complex is very good. I have a classmate who lives there. Cut the crap and come here quickly. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Tell the security guards to look for me when you arrive at the gate. All right, I'll wait for you. As he hung up the phone, Tan Xiu looked at the time and found that it was only 6:30 in the morning. Since he wasn't sleepy at all, he got up and put on his clothes. After washing up, he strolled outside the villa complex and found a breakfast shop to have breakfast. As he was strolling back, Yuan Chuling called him again. "I'm here, eldest brother." Tan Xiu was far away from the villa complex's gate. He saw the chubby Yuan Chuling holding his mobile and gesturing to the two security guards. "I'm behind you. Give me a minute." After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu saw Yuan Chuling turn his head and immediately waved at him. When he came to the front of Yuan Chuling, he looked at his plump belly and grinned. "Hey, kid. How come you're fatter than when you were in high school? Didn't you say that the military training is very hard?" "The military training is indeed very hard, but the food is also good." Yuan Chuling chuckled. "I don't know why, but my appetite has grown recently. Anyways, let's not talk about this. How come you're here, eldest brother?" "I live here." Tan Xiu pointed inside and said with a smile. "You bought a villa here?" Yuan Chuling was surprised. "It's a gift from my family." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Let's go. Come inside with me. I'm going back to Star City." Yuan Chuling followed Tan Xiu. After entering the villa complex, he curiously asked, "Eldest brother, why are you going back to Star City? Also, you said it's a gift from your family? Who would be so generous?" "Hey, can you not be so curious?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Anyways, you've been in Shanghai for a long time, but why didn't you contact me? Did you pick up some chicks? Did you lose your humanity after having the opposite sex? Did you send someone to investigate me, eldest brother?" Yuan Chuling was surprised. "How did you know that I've picked up some chicks?" Tan Xiu was rendered speechless. He didn't expect that this big fatty, Yuan Chuling, would really pick up some chicks. The reason why he said that was entirely due to the influence of Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong. After arriving at the villa, Yuan Chuling toured around and then ran back to the living room on the first floor. He looked at Tan Xiu, who was sitting on the sofa and smoking, and praised, "Eldest brother, this place of yours is really good. I've decided to rent a room with some chicks later. Just remember to save a room for me. Get lost." Tan Xiu scolded with a smile, "You're just a rich second-generation kid. If you want a house, go find your father." Yuan Chuling sat in front of Tan Xiu and said with a smile, "Eldest brother, I found that you've changed. You've become stingy. That won't do. You'll pay for my flight ticket back to Star City today to make up for my wounded heart. You're also going back to Star City." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and asked. "Hee hee." Yuan Chuling chuckled and said, "Actually, I came to find you today for some serious business. I've received an order from my family's patriarch to invite you back. He said that there's something he wants to talk to you about." "What does your father want to talk to me about?" Tan Xiu was confused. Yuan Chuling shrugged his shoulders and shook his head. "You ask me, but who am I supposed to ask? He doesn't want me to meddle in his family's business. Apart from giving me money every time, he still gives me money. On the contrary, he called me several times recently and asked about you every time." Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he nodded and said, "Then let's go back now. It just so happens that I have something to do back to Star City." Don't worry. Yuan Chuling waved and said, "I still have something to talk to you about." "What is it?" asked Tan Xiu. "Eldest brother," Yuan Chuling chuckled and said, "the reason why I'm looking for you this time, aside from the matter my dad told me to do, is that I want to partner with you in business. As for me, I do have a lot of money in my hands, but I've taken a fancy to a project and I want to start it with a bang. So, hee hee." Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and snappily said, "Do I look like a rich man to you? Besides, we're still studying now. What kind of business do you want to do? Do you have time to take care of it later?" The smile on Yuan Chuling's face disappeared as he seriously said, "Eldest brother, you're definitely a rich man. At least a few thousand times richer than me. Listen to my plan first. If you think it's feasible, then you can invest and do it with me. If not, then I'll think about it again. Then tell me, what kind of business do you want to do? Tan Xiu said. Yuan Chuling asked, Boss, after I arrived in Shanghai, I spent a lot of time drinking and having fun for a few days. Then, I accidentally discovered something. Nowadays, the pace of life in the metropolis is very fast. Many salarymen open their eyes to go to work every day, and after work, they go to the nightlife. Their sub-health condition is very serious. I want to open a large fitness center in Shanghai. Yesterday, I updated 5 chapters. This morning, I got up and saw that there were only 9 monthly tickets. I suddenly felt that the world is full of malice. Brothers and sisters, let's buy all kinds of tickets. Chapter 411. Fitness Center. Tang Xiu slightly furrowed his brows as a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. Yuan Chuling's idea was indeed good. If a fitness center in a big city was done well, it could indeed earn a lot of money. Have you done any market research? Yuan Chuling nodded seriously and said, I've done some market research. For that market research report, I spent more than 10,000 yuan to hire 20 students from our university. They ran around for 3 days and got thousands of research reports for students, white-collar workers, self-employed people, and other groups of people. The report showed that 82% of the people were in a sub-healthy state. 12% of the people had a fitness card and often went to the fitness center to work out. 64% of the people had the intention to go to the gym to work out. Tan Xiu quietly listened to Yuan Chuling's words and silently nodded in his heart. However, he was not as optimistic as Yuan Chuling had imagined. If he wanted to rely on the fitness center to make money, he needed a lot of business elements. Actually, it's easy to open a fitness center. As long as you have money, you can rent a place and renovate it to a higher level. The fitness equipment is complete, and you can hire excellent fitness coaches. It's very easy to open a business. The key is management. After all, there must be a lot of fitness centers in a big city like Shanghai. How can you do it better than others and share more benefits from this big market? Yuan Chuling grinned and said, My business philosophy is very simple. It can even be considered violent. That is, high grade, low threshold. In other fitness centers, fitness is sports and exercise. But what I want is different. I want to play. I want to play new tricks in fitness so that people can have fun while working out. Tan Xiu was surprised and said, Tell me about it. Yuan Chuling raised his hand and rubbed his chin. He laughed and said, Boss, I may not be as good as you when it comes to learning and doing business. But when it comes to playing, you definitely won't be able to catch up to me. I'll give you a few examples. Nowadays, there are many shopping malls that have activities, right? And in the fitness center, we can also do activities. For example, we can set up bonuses and prizes for fitness competitions. In addition, a beautiful female coach is also a good choice. If it doesn't work, we can also find a sparring partner. Also, there are a lot of older single men and women in the metropolis. We can do blind dates. By promoting the interaction between members, we might be able to act as a matchmaker for many times. Another example would be to set up a club for members and set up a sports talent section. We can collaborate with some media to produce some television programs. As long as we are willing to spend money, we can become more and more famous and influential. Tan Xiu looked at Yuan Chuling, who spoke with confidence and composure, and saw him in a new light. Speaking of which, Yuan Chuling did have his strengths in this aspect. If he had enough tricks up his sleeves, he might really be able to make a name for himself. How much do you need? Upon hearing this, Yuan Chuling's eyes immediately lit up. He counted his fingers and said, I can take out 2 million yuan now. That's all I have. If you are willing to invest, I will immediately look for my dad and borrow a few million from him. If you can invest 5 million, I'm confident that I'll be able to do it well. You mean, the total investment is about 10 million? Asked Tan Xiu. That's right, said Yuan Chuling with a nod. After thinking for a moment, Tan Xiu slowly said, I'll invest 15 million yuan, accounting for 60% of the shares. You'll invest 5 million yuan, accounting for 40% of the shares. After the fitness center is established, I'll be a hands-off manager and you'll be in charge of all the operations. As for me, I'll assign someone to the finance department to understand the financial situation of the fitness center after its establishment. How about it? Yuan Chuling slapped his thigh and nodded with a smile, no problem. Then it's a deal. Give me your bank account number. I'll transfer the money to you now, said Tan Xiu. So fast? Yuan Chuling stared at him and said with a surprised face. I've never liked to do things sloppily, said Tan Xiu with a smile. If you can build the fitness center well, I'll wait to make money. If you lose money, then so be it. Yuan Chuling gave a thumbs up and praised, You're really rich, big bro. Alright, I'll give you the account number now. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu transferred the money to Yuan Chuling's account. Then, he got up and said with a smile, Can we go now? We have to report to the campus tomorrow, and the class will officially start the day after tomorrow. Let's go back early so that we can come back early. Yuan Chuling jumped up with satisfaction. His muscles trembled as he grinned and said, Let's go home. Star City. At the magnificent Tang Corporation's HQ, inside the general manager's office, Kang Xia was quietly going through the documents. Her beautiful face sometimes frowned, and sometimes revealed a trace of a smile. On the sofa in the corner of the office, Andy was lazily playing with her mobile phone and yawning from time to time. Andy, take some time to keep an eye on the project in the new city. Although we can trust those forces who are cooperating with us, it's still a big project worth tens of billions of yuan. If there's a problem in the financial aspect, it will bring us great losses. Kang Xia looked up and glanced at Andy, who was playing with her mobile phone on the sofa. Don't worry, boss. Andy replied without raising her head. Kang Xia shook her head. After putting down the documents, she asked with a smile, Andy, why are you always so listless recently? I heard that the little boss of the Sameo group is crazy in pursuing you. How about it? Did you agree with him? Andy pursed her lips and snorted, Chen Si-an is indeed a bit talented and good-looking, boss. But in my opinion, no one is better than our boss. If he wants me to be his girlfriend, I think he'll have to go back to the furnace and cultivate for several decades. Yeah, no one is better than our boss, said Kang Xia without hesitation. However, we only have one boss. I will definitely make him kneel down before me. So don't even think about it. Andy got up and said with arms akimbo, Boss, you may be my immediate superior, but you can't be my master when it comes to love. God made me fancy boss, so he'll definitely be mine. If you want to PK with me, then I'll have a good contest with you. Pfft, Kang Xia couldn't help but burst into laughter. I'm serious, boss, said Andy with a disgruntled expression. Our boss is the best among men, and he'll never only have one woman. Didn't your country have an emperor system? That emperor can have 3 palaces, 6 courtyards, and 72 concubines. I think our boss can do the same. As for me, I don't want to be the empress, just give me an imperial concubine to play with and I'll be satisfied. Imperial concubine my ass. Kang Xia scolded with a smile. Don't talk nonsense with me. Ring, ring, ring. Kang Xia's words were interrupted by her mobile phone's ringtone. Andy spat out her pink tongue at Kang Xia and then lazily lied on the sofa, continuing to fiddle with her mobile phone. Kang Xia grabbed her mobile and looked at the caller ID. Her eyes suddenly lit up as she got up and answered, Boss, are you looking for me? Kang Xia, I'll be back in Star City around noon. You arrange it and we'll have a celebration banquet at the Long's dining hall in the evening. Tan Xiu's voice came out of the phone. Kang Xia was pleasantly surprised, Boss, you'll be back at noon? That's great. I'll immediately order it. That's right, what time is your flight? Do you want me to pick you up at the airport? No need to pick me up, said Tan Shio with a smile. I'll go back to South Gate Town first. I'll go to the company to find you in the afternoon. All right. Kang Xia replied with a smile. After hanging up the phone, Kang Xia raised her head with a smile on her face. But what she didn't expect was that Andy had already arrived at her desk, standing on her tiptoes and staring at her with her big watery eyes. Andy, what are you doing? Asked Kang Xia with a smile. Andy blinked and asked, is it boss's phone call? Has boss come back? Will I be able to see him? Kang Xia nodded and said, that's right. Boss told me on the phone that he'll come back personally to hold a celebration banquet for us. He wants us to go to the Long's dining hall to arrange it. How about it? Do you want to show off in front of boss? With a happy expression on her face, Andy curiously asked, how? I'll leave tonight's celebration banquet to you. Kang Xia said with a smile. If you do well, boss will definitely look at you differently. Andy immediately raised her hand and called out, I promise I'll make boss satisfied. Boss, I'm going to get busy. Go. Said Kang Xia with a smile. At South Gate Town. Inside the Wang Villa, Su Lingyun was drowsily dozing off, while Tang Yunda was reading a stack of documents in his hand with his brows constantly furrowed. Even though it was almost October, the weather was still a bit hot and humid. Dense beads of sweat even appeared on Tang Yunda's forehead. Dad! After Tan Shio's figure appeared in front of Tang Yunda, he called out in a low voice. Tang Yunda stared blankly for a moment. Only now did he realize that his son had come back. Just as he was about to stand up and speak, he saw Tan Shio make a silent gesture to him. Study room. Tang Yunda faintly smiled and left the living room with Tan Shio. Inside the study room. After Tang Yunda and Tan Shio took a seat, Tang Yunda asked with a smile, why are you back? What happened last time when you left in a hurry? I'll tell you about my disciple later, said Tan Shio with a smile. Anyways, why didn't my mom go to the restaurant today? She just came back not long ago, said Tang Yunda with a smile. How is it? Tan Shio asked with a smile. You haven't lived with mom for 20 years. Have you gotten used to it? Tang Yunda grinned and said, to be honest, I'm not used to it at first. But I found that your mom has simply turned into a strong woman. She's busy with the restaurant every day. I told her to rest more, but she doesn't listen. If you have time, talk to your mom about it. She's working so hard, and the restaurant can't earn much money. That's because you don't understand my mom's mind, said Tan Shio with a smile. She used to live a hard life, so she can bear hardships and endure hardships. She won't feel at ease if there's nothing going on in her hands. If she wants to toss and turn, just let her toss and turn. It doesn't matter to our family how much money we make, as long as she's happy. Chapter 412. A guilty look flashed in Tang Yunda's eyes as he nodded and said, I understand that you and your mother have suffered a lot over the years. Even if the days are getting better and better, her heart is still restless. She's afraid that if she doesn't save more money now, she'll have to suffer again in the future. Tan Shio nodded and suddenly said, Dad, have you considered the matter we talked about last time? Are you ready to do something? I've been investigating several projects recently, but I haven't decided yet, said Tang Yunda. What projects? Tan Shio was surprised. One of them is the hotel business, said Tang Yunda. Shuangqing province's economic level is getting higher and higher, and the transportation with other provinces in the country is getting more and more convenient. I found that the hotel business can still be done. However, it's a bit difficult to make it big. Another one is the real estate business. Although there are a lot of real estate companies in the country now, the housing problem is still a top priority with the increase of the population. Another one is the logistics business. Online shopping is very popular now, and the logistics industry is very profitable. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and suddenly said, Dad, I think the hotel business can be done. But I don't think setting up a hotel in Shuangqing province is necessarily a big investment, and the business may not be good. You might as well look further and focus on those cities with extremely developed tourism. For example, coastal cities. Tang Yunda's eyes lit up. He immediately patted his thigh and said, Son, you're right. People's living standards are improving now, and the tourism industry is booming. The business will definitely be good if we set up a hotel near those scenic spots. What about the other two? What do you think? I think we should forget about the real estate business, said Tan Xiu. There are construction companies all over the country, be it big cities or small places. Many of them are very strong, so it won't be easy to snatch their business. As for the logistics industry, we can do it. But I need to know how big you want to do it. I can come up with 2 billion yuan, said Tang Yunda. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and said with a smile, let's put the hotel business aside first and invest in the logistics business first. There are only a few of the biggest logistics companies in the country. If you can set up a large logistics company and open up all the logistics lines in the country, I'm afraid you can make a big profit. What do you think about cooperating with others? Asked Tang Yunda. Tan Xiu asked, with whom? Inject capital into a large logistics company and become a shareholder, said Tang Yunda. Tan Xiu thought for a moment before shaking his head and said, I don't think it's appropriate. Those large logistics companies already had complete logistics channels and had a great reputation. At this time, even if they had money, it would not be easy to intervene. I feel that we can acquire a small logistics company and inject a large amount of funds into it. We can start to expand more logistics routes and spread the transportation network all over the country. On the one hand, it was necessary to ensure the safety of logistics, and on the other hand, it was necessary to ensure the speed of logistics. By the way, I bought a few planes. If you really want to do logistics business, I'll give them to you after the reconstruction of Nine Dragons Island is completed. Really? Tang Yunda's eyes lit up and he was pleasantly surprised. Tan Xiu smiled and said, how could this be fake? That's a good idea. Tang Yunda praised. I've learned about the situation of other large logistics companies in the country. They also have transport planes, but the number is very small. As long as you throw money and go all out, any business can be done, said Tan Xiu. Although I still have some money in my hands, I also have a lot of places to use money, so I can't help you. I know you have money, but how can I use your money to do business? Tang Yunda said with a smile. However, can you get me a batch of God's nectar from the magnificent Tang Corporation? You can talk to Kang Xia about this matter. She can refuse anyone, but she won't refuse you, said Tan Xiu. Alright, I still have something to do, so I can't accompany you anymore. Didn't you just come back? Tang Yunda was confused. You're leaving again. Where are you going this time? My high school classmate's father said that he has something to talk to me about, so I'm going to see him, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Are you coming back for dinner tonight? Tang Yunda asked with a smile. I have something to do tonight, so I won't be coming back. Tan Xiu shook his head. Even if Yuan Jingxian wants to invite me to dinner, I don't have time today. Yuan Jingxian? Tang Yunda stared blankly for a moment. A surprised look appeared on his face as he asked, Son, your classmate's father is called Yuan Jingxian? The owner of the Yuan Group? Yeah. Tan Xiu nodded. Do you know him? I've met him a few times. Tang Yunda nodded. He's like me. We both came out from the army. I also heard about this, said Tan Xiu. His current business has a deep connection with the army. However, he said a few months ago that he wants to find another way to do business. I don't know if this matter is related to him looking for me this time. Alright, you go then. Tang Yunda nodded. Quickly. Then, Tan Xiu left South Gate Town. He didn't greet his mother since she hadn't woken up yet. After driving his Land Rover SUV to the Yuan family's villa, Yuan Jingxian and Zhao Jing were very enthusiastic. They personally welcomed Tan Xiu to the study room. Yuan Jingxian then said with a smile, "Tan Xiu, your magnificent Tang Corporation is getting more and more prosperous. You're making a lot of money every day." "I don't know much about the company's business," said Tan Xiu modestly. "Kang Xia usually manages it, and my main task is still to study." Yuan Jingxian enviously said, "Tan Xiu, you're really lucky to have such a great general like Kang Xia working for you. If I had such a powerful person under my command, I wouldn't have such a headache now." "Uncle Yuan, is there something you want to talk to me about?" asked Tan Xiu. Yuan Jingxian nodded and said, "You also know that I've been thinking about changing the business a while ago. Recently, I've withdrawn a lot of funds, and because of my relationship with you, I got some investment in the new city project. However, I still have a lot of money in hand, so I want to ask you if there's any business worth investing in." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Uncle Yuan, you're definitely a capable person since you can fight for such a business with your bare hands. You asked me about investment, but it's really hard for me to answer. Besides, you're not the first person to ask me about investment today." Yuan Jingxian stared blankly and said with astonishment, "There's someone else." "Who is it?" "My dad." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Your dad?" Yuan Jingxian was confused. "As far as I know, you seem to have grown up with your mother." "I've never heard of him. I did grow up with my mother due to some special reasons," said Tan Xiu. "But my dad came back recently, so I want to do some business." "That's right, I mentioned you when I was chatting with my dad. He said that you two have met a few times before." "Your dad is?" Yuan Jingxian was surprised. "Tang Yunda," said Tan Xiu. "Tang Yunda?" Yuan Jingxian faintly felt that the name was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had heard it. When he looked up at Tan Xiu's face, his mind suddenly lit up. Tan Xiu's appearance reminded him of a person. Because of this, he suddenly got up. Disbelief flashed in his eyes as he hurriedly asked, "Your dad is called Tang Yunda? The former soldier king in the army? The one from the Tang family in the imperial capital?" "That's right," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Yuan Jingshuan's lips squirmed a few times. With an excited expression on his face, he murmured, "Brother Tang is still alive? I can't forget his heroic spirit when we met more than 20 years ago. Tan Xiu, where's your dad now? Can I see him? Can I have a few drinks with him?" "He's in South Gate Town," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Uncle Yuan, you can go there directly if you want to see him." Yuan Jingxian heavily nodded and said, "Tonight. I'll visit him tonight." "Tan Xiu, you don't know that your dad used to be the pride of our soldiers. He's an existence that countless soldiers and soldiers look up to. If it weren't for that incident, I dare say that he would have become a general and become a big shot in the army." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and didn't answer. Yuan Jingxian sighed again, "I never expected it. It's really unexpected. You're actually his son. No wonder you have such great ability at such a young age. Like father, like son. It's really like father, like son." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "Uncle Yuan, let's not talk about this topic. If you want to ask me about investment issues, I really can't help you." Yuan Jingshuan's eyes lit up as he shook his head and said, "You can. I firmly believe that you can." "Why do you say that?" Tan Xiu was stunned. "Didn't you just say it?" Yuan Jingxian said with a smile. "Your dad also wants to do business, and so do I. If the two of us cooperate." "I won't interfere whether you cooperate or not," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "If you have any issues, you can discuss it. Don't involve me." "But Yuan Chuling must have told you that he wants to open a fitness center in Shanghai, right?" You're his father, so will you support him? Even you can support him, so how can I not? Yuan Jingxian said with a smile. Yiling has already told me everything that you've said to me. I've also made the decision to give him 10 million yuan and let him do it. I'll support him as long as he can learn some skills, even if he has to spend all his capital in the end. Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and praised, Uncle Yuan, you just said, like father, like son. It can also be applied to you and your father. Don't worry. I'll help look after the fitness center. There won't be any problems as long as he doesn't cause trouble. All right. Yuan Jingxian was actually waiting for Tan Xiu to say this. He nodded with satisfaction after hearing it. Sorry, I got something to do today, so the update is late. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.